I'm a little late in starting off, but oh, I have to change my background and stuff. Anyway, so Katie, how have you been?
Been good, man. Thanks for having me back on first of all. But no, I've been good, man. Like since we spoke about the show coming out and Black Ops Series 2, and it's been received really well, man. Like the series premiere did work really well, and yeah, we're you know I'm getting a lot of lovely messages. So that's really cool. Really.
How hard is it? Because it's one thing to write it, another thing to put it together, but the promotion of it, what's that been like?
Like a whole whirlwind, man. I'm gonna be on Morning Live on BBC One on 9:30 on Friday morning. So got to go do that. Got to go travel up to where am I traveling to Manchester to go film that. So that would be cool. That'd be a nice thing to go and talk about the show with the good folks up there. And but no, it's been fun, man. We've had a lot of radio spots. We did Nick Grimshaw's show on Radio 6. We was hosted by Jam Supernova was hosting that, and that was great. And then we did Remy Berg's on One Extra, and it's just good, man. It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun talking to people and getting the word out about the show, because you can take for granted that you have a show out and you're just like, oh, it's on TV, and like actually going out. It's like campaigning. You're letting people know. A show like ours, we can take for granted that it's on BBC One, but BBC isn't the same. It's publicly broadcasted. As glamorous as it might sound to our friends across the pond, it's still publicly broadcasted. It's a national channel, so as such, it doesn't have an unlimited budget for like billboards and stuff like that. So you have to it's kind of an honest way of promoting a show. You go out, you shake hands, and you talk to the people, and so that's really good.
Yes, okay. But yeah, Black Ops Series 2, but for those in the States, when would they get it? Would it be on Hulu yet?
It will be on Hulu. Like, well, I think we're still sorting out the Hulu, like the further episodes and all that type of stuff. But Series 1 is already out on Hulu. Get a lot of messages from my stateside folks about them seeing it on Hulu and things like that. But Series 2 will be soon.
Okay.
Hopefully on that platform as well.
All right. So you chose The Chronic 2001.
I did, and I know your show is very R&B based. I could have done an R&B album, but like I kind of love, so to people used to the sounds of L.A. Reid and Babyface and without any cursing. This isn't the album for that, but it's one of my favorite albums ever.
Are you serious?
Yeah, it's one of my favorite albums ever. I think it's the best produced hip hop album ever. I think it's the best engineered hip hop album ever. Like I really do.
Yeah, it was. So I was listening to it as I was making my commute to London.
Clean version.
I don't know if there is a clean version, but I was listening to it and I was thinking, wow, it was difficult because it was quite a lot of. I think when I was listening to it, I was remembering that actually, goodness, as back in the day, this song, hi Michael, this I was saying back in the day, this was no different than say. The main Chronic or Snoop and all this stuff. But I think there was a part of me that was listening to the lyrics of whether it was Snoop, whether it was Hitman, and it felt that they were, and I remember that actually West Coast gangster rap, it felt like they did as much as they there was a sense of how they treated women based on the lyrics.
Yeah.
That actually listening to it now, I was like, wow, this is really toxic. The way they just talk about women.
Big time. And look, it's really interesting because it's like it's such a contradiction to kind of who I am, like the album. Like, you went Catholic school and you're hood. I'm hood adjacent. I grew up in the neighborhood, but I'm not, on the fringes. But the album came at a really interesting time in life. I remember, I will never forget the day I went to Our Price and bought it. Um,
Our prices at a record store, like
yeah,
Virgin. Okay.
exactly. It was like the baby version of Virgin Megastores or Tower Records as you'd have in the States, but it was like they were like like a small record store. And I remember going because this album dropped November 16th, 1999. So I had like
You remember the
no,
data.
I remember it really well because I had some my birthday is November 1st. My birthday is November 1st. So I had some like birthday money saved up or whatever, and I'd basically been tracking the album. This was like not burgeoning internet, like the internet had been popping, there'd been fan forums and all that type of stuff. But I remember tracking the album in real time. It's so interesting because Dre and Snoop had only really started doing records together that year again. Like
Mm.
Snoop had dropped an album earlier that year called No Limit Top Dog. It
Oh,
was a
yeah, I like
second.
that album.
It's a great album. It's a
Mm.
great album. It's one of my favorite Snoop albums. It's a brilliant album. But they actually had their official like on record reunion with that album. Dre did 3 cuts on that. And just for context, Snoop had left. This 2001 album, the No Limit Top Dog album. They all arrive
Mm.
in the, to use a pun, the aftermath of the collapse of Death Row Records, because there was a
Yeah.
real chasm after Tupac died, after Dre left the record label and Sugar gone to jail. Basically, Death Row was over and that wave was over. Snoop was kind of in limbo as an artist. He didn't really have a home. He didn't have a crew, as it were. And I know, watching Demiza, Damien Young, the exec, who has a great podcast and
Mm.
is a great voice, an almanac online. He talks about giving Snoop a job at Power 106 during that time, and we'll probably go into that later. But basically, Dre and Snoop hadn't made a record since maybe the mid '90s.
Mm.
I know they tried to get back together in like maybe '97, and there was talks of them doing a reunion album called Break Up to Make Up around '97. And incidentally, they did a track together called Zoom, which ended up on which Snoop got removed from because I don't think Death Row were going to give him permission to work with Dre.
Mm.
So then and you can find this all on YouTube, but
Mm.
basically Snoop got replaced and LL Cool J was put on that song. And then I look, they're talking about Streets as a Mother. Yeah. Look, these are people who know what they're talking about. These are people who know what they're talking about. Because I don't want to read their stuff. I'll read it afterwards.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
I'm talking to family. I'm talking to family here. So anyway, Snoop's vocals got replaced, and then LL Cool J was put on it, and then that song Zoom was put on the Bullworth soundtrack. Anyway, I just wanted to give that context to the album. So Snoop and Dre officially got back together as like master and apprentice on the No Limit Top Dog album. Dre produced 3 records. DJ Quick produced 3 records as well. He had songs with Meech Wells produced some songs. It was just an amazing.
Wells, yeah, and Bang, yeah.
Yeah, it was whose mum was Mary Wells, rest her soul. Who was Mary.
Okay.
She was in the Supremes, but you had basically you had a going back home. That's what Snoop was doing with that album, because the first album he put out on
No Limit.
No Limit, the game is to be sold, not to be told.
Yeah. That Beats by the Pound.
Yeah. By Beats by the Pound, you know your stuff. Who's a beast himself. And that album, I remember buying that first. I'm just trying to give context.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Like I'll jump around from things, but I trust you'll bring me back in. I remember going to Our Price the year before that. It's a '98 the album came out, and I remember having a choice between. It was my 2 favorite rappers at the time, was Snoop and Cannabis. 2 kind of polar opposite.
Wow.
Cannabis and Snoop were like my favorite rappers. I have to meet Snoop. I have to meet him in life. I met Cannabis once, but I have to meet Snoop. Ashley Walker just met Snoop at the Golden Globes. Anyway, I'm digressing. So it was between those two albums, between Cannabis's first album and Snoop's album for No Limit. And I went with Snoop's one because it's like a Snoop, and the cover, the pen and pixel kind of album cover with all the kind of the No Limit and Cash Money, the
Yeah.
pixel and all that. And the album was a bit of a disappointment. I won't lie, it was. You had a song called Still a G Thing, which was the lead single, and then you had Gin and Juice Part 2, but it just didn't have that oomph. Anyway, with No Limit Top Dog, I think Master P just granted him his wishes to go back to LA and work with the cream of the crop. So you have am I allowed to curse on this?
Go ahead.
Yeah. I just want to just check.
I've got the parent advisory explicit lyrics at the bottom. So
lead single, I believe it was the lead single from No Limit Top Dog was Bitch Please, but that was like Snoop and Dre produced that. It was the introduction of Exhibit. Like I heard Paparazzi as a kid in that kind of summer of 96 kind of thing, but it didn't kind of dawn on me that was the same guy. And he had the lead verse for Bitch Please. The production was great, and it was a new sound. There was also a song called Buckham on there.
Oh yeah, Buckham. Yeah.
Fingers, and then the other song that they did was Just Dipping. So those songs actually, production-wise, set the stage and the template for a lot of the Sonics that we hear in 2001. So we think about Buckham, yeah, and Buckham has like a very Telecaster, like a guitar, like a kind of 60s kind of distorted guitar sound, hard New York drums. It was basically Dre veering into production sonically away from just being West Coasty. And it had Sticky Fingers on it because around that same time, Sticky Fingers, he was supposed to sign to Aftermath. So I have a belief that might have been a Sticky Fingers song. Anyway, and it had the album had a Dolomite intro, so it had all the thematics that you'd expect from a Snoop album. Anyway, those three songs, Just Dippin', Buckham, and Bitch Please, set the sonic template for what 2001 became. Like, which also kind of follows a little bit along from like the phone tap kind of sound, guitar kind of bass, really kind of heavy drums. Anyway, we get into that album that comes out, it does really well, and everyone's excited because Snoop and Dre are back. And I remember being the rest of that year hearing little snippets. I remember MTV, the website, was a massive thing. And just to say, the website, the archive has gone down. They basically, for whatever reason, whether it was financial, they got rid of the archive. And that was like the best resource of information, because MTV.com would put these little snippets, and bear in mind, we're on dial-up internet. So you're just waiting the whole day to just see a little bit of video. And it would be like Dr. Dre would be talking about the process. They'd be teasing the process of the album coming, because the album at the time for that all of 99 was called The Chronic 2000. It was never called 2001. It was called The Chronic 2000. So they were talking about it, and they were like, oh, soon we'll have the lead single. At one point, he was working with Tim and Bob. Dre was working with Tim and Bob.
Oh.
So Tim and Bob, I remember reading Vibe magazine. There's a Vibe magazine, I think, with Ace on the cover. Basically, Tim and Bob did two singles. They might have done a bunch of them. One of them's leaked. One of them's called Hey You. And it's a very, it's Tim and Bobby. It's really dope. But then there's another song called Malibu Dre, which has never leaked. Like, no one, I don't know, maybe like Steve Stout or someone in that camp or whatever has heard it. But there's a song called Malibu Dre that I've been trying to get my hands on for like the last 25 years.
And this was done by Tim and Bob?
Tim and Bob did this, yeah. Tim and Bob did this. But
okay, I'll ask Tim.
Yeah, please do, because Hey You, and you'd be doing a good favor for my boy 92 Bricks. My boy 92 Bricks have been trying to find this Malibu Dre song. Shout out to 92 Bricks. He's got like one of the biggest hip hop pages on Instagram.
But, is it called Malibu what?
Malibu Dre. So there's a song called Hey You, which is available, where you could just find it on YouTube. I think that leaked during COVID, like at the top of 2020. I think people were so bored that things just started leaking. Someone even leaked a beat tape a demo beat tape of some of the beats from 2001. Anyway, so that whole summer, the album was called Chronic 2001, and then I think like Death Row, bless them, were like, oh, let's spoil the fun, because they'd already spoiled the fun on Snoop's No Limit Top Dog by releasing Snoop. Let me correct it. Snoop's lead single, I think, from Top Dog was Cinderfella. Yeah, Cinderfella, which is like a Dana Dane cover of a Dana Dane record. Because you know Snoop on every album, he used to do covers from Ladi Dadi to Vapors. He did Love's Gonna Get You on The Game's Not to Be Sold. You know. Oh no, I do know Ball. I do know Ball. I do know Ball. Big up. That's love. That's love. That's love. That's love. That's love. That's love. That's the biggest compliment. That's the biggest compliment. That's love. That's love. Big up to you.
Well done, Michael.
No, that's love. That's love. That's love. No, so boom. Yeah. So with Reggie, bless him, Reggie Wright was running Death Row, and they had an artist called YGD, the Top Dog, who was from Compton, and he basically released his own version of Snoop's record, where they sounded the same. And this incidentally ended up on an album called Chronic 2000, Still Smoking. And I remember being in California in 99. I was in California, went to because we used to spend summers there as kids. And I remember going to, it must have been a Sam Goody. It was either a Sam Goody or a Best Buy, and sing. I bought 2 albums. I bought Crazy Bones album, Thug Mentality, and I bought Chronic 2000. And I put it in the record player, and I was like, this isn't it. This isn't it. So Dre, after hearing that they'd sort of sabotaged his Chronic 2000 rollout, was like, fuck it, we'll just call the album 2001.
Oh.
Yeah, so that's where that came from, because and then even back to the MTV thing, all of that information was there on the MTV archive. We used to I used to sit around like wait for them to release this information. And he said, like, listen, I don't care what's on the package, is what's coming out of them speakers, you know. And to be fair, when the snippet of Still Dre came out, I remember I would have been in like going into year 8. Going into year 8, and I remember hearing a snippet, and there used to be this thing called Real Audio Player, which was like an audio protocol similar to it was an audio protocol that worked for the internet. So it was like lossy. It was a lossy audio codec, so the audio sounded really crunched. You got CD quality, you've got MP3, burgeoning MP3 quality. Real Audio was a streaming codec, and it was terrible. It was a terrible quality. I remember even the sound is like a blue speech bubble, and every website used to use Real Audio. I remember there was a website called Snoop's Doghouse, and they had all the information on Snoop, anything Snoop related. So like probably like my parents' phone bill was like, why is Snoop's Doghouse? They had all the unreleased stuff, and this was like just tapped into my early internet nerdery. So Snoop's Doghouse, I remember they had a snippet of Still Dre, and I lost my mind, because mind you, I'm 12 at this point, or just about 12. And I grew up with, I wasn't old enough for the first Chronic. I wasn't old enough for Doggy Style when it came out. I was old enough for the Dogfather. So the Dogfather was my sister, the Dogfather and Biggie's first album was my sister's attempt to get me away from Michael Jackson. She was like, I need you to stop dressing like Michael Jackson. I need you to toughen up. She's telling this to a 10-year-old. Quite a rough estate. Shout out to Holly Street Roads estate. And so she's like, you need to toughen up. Stop this Michael Jackson stuff. So I lived Snoop's second album, Dogfather, and then I got a little bit older. I went back. I mean, I knew some of the singles, but then I went back to Doggy Style. But I remember that when I heard the snippets of 2001 of Still Dre, from that Scott Storch Key intro, I was like, what is this? So my parents have a pub, and above the pub there was a apartment. And I remember my dad had a computer. That's where we had internet at home, and we had a computer above the thing. I remember listening to it in that room, and I was like, what the hell? What is this? Because I'd never heard anything like it. And then I read Dr. Dre did again. There's an interview somewhere on the MTV website where Dre talks about how they made that sound because it was a big thing. It was a big thing. They were talking about like it's a combination of a piano and a ukulele. I remember it so clearly. And he talks
Wow.
about the blunk, 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 blunk. They were talking about what went into like what sounds composed that thing. It's not just the piano. Anyway, and I remember that's what entranced me because mind you, I'm 12. I already
Mm,
play guitar. I'm like my like I also remember like around that time 11, 12. One of my best friends, Yannick, shout out to Yannick. Yannick had given me a tape. I had grew up with Eddie Murphy coming to America and all that type of stuff. We had Raw on tape. I'd never actually watched it, but Yannick actually gave me Delirious. He gave me a copy of Delirious, and it's because of Yannick that I was like, oh, let me go and start listening to some Richard Pryor as well. And so there was this thing that happened where it was just I was at the perfect age to get that out, to get the Chronic, to get all those things because this kind of there was just an awakening. There was an awakening
mm.
stuff. And I remember November 16th coming, going to our price, taking my little money, buying the CD, putting it in, putting some headphones on, and being like, whoa, I was taken somewhere. I was taken somewhere I'd never been before. It was the cleanest hip hop album I'd ever heard. It was the best Sonic movie. It's a Sonic movie. And we're looking at the cover now, and album covers play such an important part of how you receive an album. Because mind
Mm,
you, in an age pre easy access to visuals, pre like, oh, I'm just gonna look on YouTube.
mm.
What you have, like your cover, your inlay card, even what my background now is basically was the back of the inlay card. You can't see it properly, but it's Dre and his co-producer Melman in Dre's warehouse, which I don't think he owns anymore, but he called it the Terror Dome. It's where he keeps like, thousands of records, and this is just basically set up to show them sampling records. It's got like an MPC 3000, there's an SP 1200 there, and I don't know what keyboard that is behind it. Maybe some kind of like Kurzweil or something. I don't know. But anyway, that thing sets the template because I looked at the album cover. I was like, "What is this? This is futuristic. This is what this is a Chronic leaf. What is a Chronic leaf? You know what I mean?" And then I looked at that thing and I looked at the records. I looked at the tech behind it, and it awakened a few things in me because after that, I just became obsessed with this thing of making beats. I became obsessed. I wanted to
Ah.
know how he did this. I wanted to know how he made this and how he made it so clean because I'd never heard anything sound as from hip hop anyway, sound that clean, that precise. And and that album changed my ears and the way I thought about music. And that's not hyperbolic to say that, from a hip hop perspective, it really did. Because the album, you close your eyes from the moment you hear the THX deep note, the THX sound. So the first sound on it is the like THX, the George Lucas company. That's the
Oh
very
yes, yes, yeah, boom, yeah,
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 that's
yeah.
on Lolo, the intro to the album. That's THX Deep Note, and Dre actually
Mm,
got sued for that. Like George Lucas, I think he wanted a million and a half or whatever.
wow.
And I remember, but by him using that, he's going, "I'm taking you on a movie." So also in hindsight, as like a grown man, you're going, "Oh, don't take this literally. Don't." I never took it. I wasn't gonna go suddenly join a gang. You know what I mean? I wasn't gonna be like calling women out their name. It was like watching a Sonic movie. And then to hear it's Exhibit and Trey D, one of the West Coast greatest rappers, one of the greatest rappers in hip hop, Trey D. They're on the intro. At first, I thought it was Corrupt because it sounded like Corrupt, and then I looked and I saw, oh, it's Trey D. And Trey D is one of my favorite rappers ever. He's amazing. Um, one of the East, one third of the East Siders. But that album it just did something to me, man. It did something crazy, and it made me want to make beats. It made me want to make beats.
So I guess what I think because I was around for the I was around for the Chronic album when it first
Yeah,
came out,
yeah,
and I was probably in Alabama. So G thing when that sort of dropped,
yeah.
and it's I'm sure it was different from those in the East Coast, but I could only talk about those in the South. While I was in the South, it was the kind of laid back kind of sound that we could get into.
Mm,
Um, Most of us didn't know about the issue he had with Easy E,
mm,
but then you had this young Snoop, rapping, and Dre was not had no problem taking a backseat. Like, okay,
mm,
you showcase your talent.
mm.
Um, it was so successful that a lot of producers started to take on. Even if you think of Aaliyah's AJ and the Button Number, a lot of people started to take the G Funk stuff.
They
It
did.
like people started to think about, oh, let's get George Michael. So George Michael,
George Clinton. George
George
Clinton.
Clinton. Yeah, I said George
Imagine,
Michael.
rest in peace, George Michael. But
Yeah,
imagine George
yeah,
Michael
yeah.
on a G-Funk record. That's crazy.
But they
That's
started to
crazy.
sample that. They started introducing us to, George Clinton and his and the funk and stuff. And Teddy did it for the debut Blackstreet album. They
Yeah.
started to. He also dipped into that.
I've actually said this thing, like, which I think is kind of true. I think like George Clinton's influence on West Coast hip hop is what James Brown's is to East Coast hip hop. If you think about
Mm,
not just Knee Deep is to the West Coast what Funky Drummer is to 80s East Coast hip hop, because that has been referenced, and not just that, there's also loads of Parliament and
mm,
psychedelic stuff has been used and reinterpreted, but for the most part, not just Knee Deep. If you think about Death Row alone, I think it was used like 3 times on Death Row records, from Fuck with Dre Day, that whole bass line, dun, dun,
mm,
dun, dun, or a version of that, a replaying of that. And Snoop's What's My Name?
mm.
Also, they use Atomic Dog as well, and then You Can't See Me, which was a 2-pack record on the
Oh
second
yeah,
album.
yeah, yeah,
On
yeah.
E. It was originally a Dog Pound record,
Mm,
and funk, because other people had done funk record, like funk records, or appropriated funk, like Eric Sermon had done it. Roger, he used Roger, More Bounce to the Ounce, for You Got
mm,
Skill, but the way they did it on the East Coast was different. I read
yeah.
something when I was younger, in terms of mixing, you in the East Coast, you're doing it for like being on the train and maybe a Jeep, but in LA, you're doing it for your Impala. You're doing it for that space. So these albums make sense in the context of LA, and it's like whenever I've gone to LA and I've rented a car, probably shouldn't do this, but in the wrong neighborhood. But like West Coast hip hop makes so much sense, and I was such a West Coast hip hop addict, but like
Mm.
I would, and I'm getting excited thinking about it, because I just driving one hand on the freeway playing like Eastsiders or playing Chronic, and I'm like, oh, it makes sense. It makes perfect sense. And when I'm in New York, you know what I mean? I put my Timberlands on, and and like the boom bap makes so much sense from an East Coast
Mm.
perspective over there. So this to speak to this album and what you were saying about when you was in Alabama.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
Alabama. What Dre did with the first Chronic was a paradigm shift. Now, I wasn't around.
Mm,
I as a student of the game, I
mm,
I read and I talk to like my elders about how much of a game shift it was. But just marking Dre's sonic development. If you think about what he was doing, mid 80s, World Class Wrecking Crew, playing like
mm,
electric kind of stuff, and then Straight Outta Compton, very very East Coast referencing, very break.
mm,
Think about the title track, Straight Outta Compton. It's like they sample what they sampling. They sampling the Amen Break. You know what I mean? They're sampling that. It sounds like a Bomb Squad record. It's very
mm,
frenetic. It's very loud. It doesn't have any of the hallmarks that we'd later associate with like West Coast hip hop, whether it's the Moog or anything like that, any of those synth wines. And then it's only by the second NWA album, a little bit from the EP, shout out to this guy, man. Thank you, Michael. We'll rap. You're gonna confuse me, man. I don't want to in your comments. These are scholars. I know you got scholars on your thing, man. But but no, so with the 100 Miles and Running album, Dre kind of bridged the gap. He was bridging the gap between what he would do with the N Words for Life album. I don't want to say it on thing because I hate using that word out loud. But he bridged the gap, and by that second NWA album, when Ice Cube had gone, you're starting to see a lot of the hallmarks which will become the Chronic. Now you can credit Hutch, Cold 187 from Above the Law, and Lay Law as well, for because they had their album. They were on Ruthless, and they were great producers. They're from Pomona. Hutch was, and they had what was their album? They had Black Mafia Life and Living Like Hustlers, I think. And they had those albums, and they had elements of G-Funk, because the origins of G-Funk are debated, you know what I mean? But what Dre did with that second NWA album was like, he really got you into, okay, like this is what it could be like. When you listen to Always Into Something, that sounds like it could very easily be on the Chronic. It's got like guitar, it's got staccato guitar, it's got synth whines, it's got incredible bass lines. And just to speak to back to this Chronic 2001 and all of what Dre does, he doesn't sample, he reimagines, he rearranges, he interpolates to use that technical term, but he reimagines stuff. So what you're getting by him using live musicians, which he's done from like the him and Yella did that on the first NWA album, is you're getting this amazing sonic separation. Your drums are here, you can place your drums there, you can place your piano here, so you get the fullness versus like, oh, I'm just going to take a stab here, I'm going to take a stab there. By the time he gets to the first Chronic, he's done that fully, because you listen to Nothing But a G Thing, and like I have that Leon Haywood record, and as similar as they sound, that string, that identifying string line, that's played on strings with Leon Haywood. With Dre, it's just a line on the synth, but he's reimagined the thing like enough, and it brought the best kind of session musicians, from Colin Wolfe, bass player who played on Deep Cover and all these the whole album, and you're getting this sonic separation. So I'm just trying to set the stage to just say, like, first Chronic for a lot of people was like amazing. For me, I didn't live it. I can't really speak to it in that way. My preference will always be Chronic 2001. It changed my ears. It changed my ears.
Yeah, I think there was I think by 2001 we'd moved musically, things had changed by the time we got into the 2000s. Even R&B wasn't on his top game, and we had we had a lot of the Backstreet Boys, Justin Timberlake, so Timberland, so things were moving, and hip hop was pretty much at its starting to peak at its powers, with DMX and Jay-Z and everything like that. I think the East Coast sort of got their act together, because in the early 90s, they were still happy being an underground group, just doing their little records, going gold, and that was cool for them. And well, the West Coast were just doing quadruple platinum. They were
platinum. It was like, and I think, look, Tupac kind of used that a lot, that sales as a marker of success, or like or of dominance, of cultural dominance, because he was dropping with All Eyes on Me, that came out and kind of outsold Snoop's first one. Snoop's first one did like 4 million at the gate. Best debut ever until Get Rich or Die Trying. And then, Tupac's All Eyes on Me went 5 times.
That was a double CD too.
Double album, exactly.
Yeah,
exactly.
Double album, yeah.
So, Tupac, I suppose, used that, to bolster his argument that, we're winning out here, like, Biggie, East Coast, you can't do anything. So you're very right about that. Going gold from an East Coast artist perspective was dope. That was amazing. That was almost the as far as you could go without being called a sellout. And it's really interesting that that culture of remaining underground, because it is actually a thing that I suppose, look, we do, like I suppose it might limit people in terms of what they of their ambition, because selling out was such a bad thing. Late 80s, early 90s. Oh, a Henny Savant, my guy. What do you mean? A Henny Savant. That's a Henny Savant's one of the most talented guys on the roads. He's a G. A Henny Savant, you know. Sorry. So I'm just finding out. That's one of the good guys, man. A Henny Savant, great producer, great MC. Like he's the guy. Sorry. Can you get rid of this bar? I don't want to see the.
we've got to give it a shout out. But I think, as I said, when I moved to the States in '93, and the East Coast stuff was I couldn't connect to it because it was very much, here's our little community. We're going to talk about our community and stuff. And then when first the Chronic came out, it was Hollywood. It was telling a story and painting the stories. It was beef on a different scale, but it was very much dramatic. And it was a different type of storytelling that became a lot more pop culture. So whether it's gin and juice, all of that stuff, people who aren't natural hip hop lovers could listen to and not even understand what they're talking about, but it sounded fun. I think a lot of East Coast was, the DJs and scratches and their beats were stuff where I can't really connect unless you're from the East Coast. So it was a big divide.
Do you know one of the things that and this just goes back to the point, the thread that I was on, which is about like limiting yourself, being seen as a sellout and all that type of stuff. Hammer sold 10 million. We used to have that "Please Don't Hurt 'Em" Hammer on tape. So ubiquitous. But the reason why the Hammer thing connected in the way it did was melody. It borrowed like the
Rick James,
the Rick James joint,
Super Freak,
similar to Vanilla Ice using Under Pressure. It had an identifying line, and that's what gives pop culture sensibility. East Coast hip hop was particularly at the turn of that decade was anchored in obscure loops, jazz loops sometimes, without any melodic identifying line that like grandma, grandpa, or soccer mom can be like, oh, na 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 na, or whatever. And I'm not decrying, I'm not sort of denouncing East Coast, because I'm an East Coast kid as well. But like that was the thing, and it also, but this goes into this idea of selling out or not selling out. Is like the more esoteric you can be, the more kind of huddled you can be, the more Jansport you can be, the more revered you are. But that's not paying the bills.
Look,
you're not supposed to talk about Puffy. You're not supposed to talk about him, but you have to just be honest in saying that, like, the cues that he took from Dre and West Coast were like natural. You take kind of those cues which are kind of anchored in R&B. What is the melody? What is the thing that I can repeat? That's why Biggie's Ready to Die. If Ready to Die didn't have Big Papa, which borrows from Between the Sheets, the Isley Brothers tune. If it didn't have that with its West Coast synth line, which borrowed liberally from Dre and Dre's influence, if it didn't have that album might not have walked across the street to gold and then later platinum. Obviously, it had Juicy, but the reason why Juicy was crossed over was because it had female chorus, like an R&B chorus. Total who sang that. So there was a lot of cues taken from Bad Boy from the West Coast. But back to the point of that you're saying is that like Dre and them sonically clean, production wise, and not just beat production in terms of are we making a song, was unmatched. And look, we talk about that first Chronic, And one of Dre's things, which you talk when you talk to artists or you talk to people around the aftermath camp, they'll tell you that one of his kind of key things is he'll give you a name song. So he'll
Mm,
give you a song like as a lead single to introduce yourself, which I think is really genius.
mm,
So he didn't have it for himself necessarily, but on Snoop's album, he had "What's My Name." Snoop Doggy
mm,
Dogg had that. Exhibit had X. Eminem had what? Hi, my name is
mm,
Dre. We talk about producers, and like I think there needs to be, particularly in hip hop, a distinction made between beat makers and actual producers. Because in other genres, there'll be a vocal arranger, there'll
mm,
be a vocal producer, there'll be an arranger, uh,
mm,
and there'll be like session musicians and instrumentalists. Like Quincy Jones didn't play keys on Thriller. You know what I mean?
mm.
Shout out to Filling Gaines and the rest of the crew. But Dre, that we can see in the back, Dre knows how to work the MPC and the SP 1200, all of that type of stuff. Dre's gift, more than just being able to make beats, is his ear, man. He has the best ear in hip hop.
Well, that's why Steve Stott tried to, claim that he produced these tracks, but he brings
I
in
mean, Scott
sounds.
Storch. You mean Scott Storch?
Yeah,
Yes.
Scott Scott, yeah. But Dre is like, well, yes, you can bring elements to it, but there's a full package. How you would rap over the beat, what are the drums coming in? So yeah, you could
Yeah.
say, yeah, Dre, look at this, the sound,
Yeah.
and it's like, great, that's great, but I need to add in some of this, some of the horns, and it.
Like I love Scott Storch. I think he's an amazing musician, great producer, and he had a run. He had an amazing run, but there's a reason why Dre has lasted. He probably needs to update his California Love lyric. I've been in the game for 10 years making rap tunes. He's been in the game for like 30 plus years, and he's evolved and changed with it, bringing different sounds. All the producers that came in with Dre, or that contributed in some ways as whether beat makers, or they might have given samples and all that type of stuff. When you take Dre out of the equation, put them on their own, they haven't broken artists. You see what I'm saying? They haven't broken artists, or they haven't been able to put an album around these people where you're like, oh snap, top to bottom. I remember around this time, around the late 90s and just in the 90s in general, there was only a few people, few producers that could produce a whole album on people, and you could name it. You could say Pete Rock could do a whole album. He did it with CL Smooth. Primo with Gangstar, top to bottom, shows everything. RZA, and then on the R&B side, you've got Jermaine Dupri, who crossed over into hip hop as well. But like, there was certain producers that could top to bottom give you a full package album and deliver the thing. And with Dre, and say with the Scott Storch kind of conversation, I think Scott Storch has been quoted as being the nitrous oxide to 2001. I think that album really got moving once Scott Storch came over from the Roots and played keys, because there's some demos that exist from like the early 2001 sessions and stuff, and the beats are cool, but like I think Still Dre was the thing that made it go, oh, okay, cool, we've got a single now, we've got a thing. And I think it's only track 4. It's track 4, but it's such a template for the rest of the album. It has all the things the album has. When you're thinking about the new use of synth in it, there's not one whiny synth Moog line in the whole album, I don't think. You mostly dealing with like maybe some cool Triton stuff and some ASR and Kurzweil, just technical geek stuff. But you're dealing with really hard drums. You're dealing with those keys, those kind of Baroque kind of keys and strings and sections. And like, as a student of this album, like, you got to credit Melvin Bradford, who came over from Pittsburgh to work with Aftermath. Melman is like one of the architects of the Aftermath sound, like, and is one of the unheralded elements of this album, man.
Wow. Okay. Well, I mean, we can start with track 1 and go down to the end. I mean, so the first one is the no, it's intro Lola with Exhibit and Trade. I mean, I mean, short and sweet in that. But I mean, what was your thoughts on?
That just sets the stage because it sounds like a starry night in LA, and Dre's in his garage and he's hitting switches, which just lets you know it's basically a low key thing to say the West Coast is back, because you can hear. And at first, before I knew what anything was, I was like, "What is that?" And then you get older, and you go, like, "Oh, there's the hydraulic switches for an Impala." And actually, Rockwilder used that sound, the switches sound, on Front to Back from Exhibit's album. So if you listen
Mm,
to Front to Back, the choo choo, that's the percussive framework for Rockwilder's beat on Exhibit's Front to Back from his Restless LP. But that's Lolo's cool. I think the use of the THX deep note sets the stage for like, oh, this is cinema. We're getting a
mm,
movie with this. And to hear Trey D, I mean, it's technically not really Dre production, but to hear Trey D for the first time over like Dre related stuff is dope. Trey D, I
mm.
think first time you hear him properly on the Dre beat is on Lay Low on Snoop's album. But anyway, so that's Lolo. That's the Lolo
So the
record.
second one is Watcher. So we have Eminem doing the chorus and Dre just,
Yeah.
what did you make of that?
As I've gotten older, I've realized that Eminem wrote this because you could just hear it. You could hear it. And you could hear him. He's the one doing the watch. That's M's voice doing that. But you could just hear the flow patterns. Things just ain't the same for gangsters. Times are changing. Young because it's aging, becoming OGs in the game and changing to make way for these new names and faces. It's basically a state of the union of him saying like, "Yo, I'm back, and this is what's happened." It's him because look, Dre being both master of ceremonies and maestro,
Mm,
a producer who controls the maestro, as he says on G Thing. He's able to take a standpoint of like the wizened OG in this thing, and just say like, this is how the game's changed since I came in, and
mm.
what's happening, and this and that. And the song itself is great, and it's a great way to start the album. You basically getting a template for what the production is going to be. Brass section, like rolling bass. I think that's Mike Elizondo playing bass on that. I know you got Sean Cruz on guitar, Kamara Camben on there as well, and it's just like dope drums, dope beat, dope rhymes. What more could you want?
And then we get to FU
Yes, we call it that.
featuring Devin the Dude and Snoop Dogg.
Yeah, so I'd never heard of Devin the Dude before this, and I remember hearing a snippet of it on somewhere. It was like some website that was selling the album, and you just got a little
Mm,
10-second snippet. I was like, "What is this?" Because the way the guitar is being manipulated, and there's some claps that go with the snare, and it's a very sexually provocative tune for my young ears, but I love. And like Snoop hadn't flowed like that on a record for years. He sounded
mm,
between Dre and DJ Quick, and to some degree Pharrell, they're the best at getting a vocal performance out of Snoop. But
mm,
Dre knows how to produce Snoop. He knows how to
mm.
mic him, he knows how to EQ him, and he knows how to push him, and he knows how to get him to write. And I know DOC was in those sessions as well, so they can push him. But Devin the Dude I'd never heard of from before. But Devin the Dude was part of a crew called Odd Squad, and I'd gone on to like, cop his albums after that. Devin the Dude is incredible voice, and that's one
Mm,
thing that Dre is like really incredible at finding voices to go into.
mm,
Devin the Dude, Southerner, he just got this incredible drawl. And one thing that the South unfairly got criticized by the East about is that their lack of lyrical ability and all this type of stuff, which is a misnomer, because Devin the Dude can rap with the best of them and be funny and be interesting. So it's good to hear them on this record together. And Snoop just comes in at the end and just tears it up, man.
we had the lead single, which was still Dre.
Yeah,
Um, I mean, it's folklore that Jay Z wrote the lyrics for
yeah,
Dre.
yeah,
Um, but we get the keys, the famous
yeah.
Scott Storch keys, just playing almost like keys with a harp, kind of just that stuff. And I think it's Hype Williams' video, but I can't.
It isn't. You're correct. It's a Hype Williams video, but it's not a typical Hype Williams video. It's not.
Yeah, but he was doing a letterbox, but
he
now
was doing a letterbox, and it had like a funny thing with the letterbox. There's a lot of green in it, and they're driving down Crenshaw. They're in a blue Impala. There's a beach thing. Eminem features for a little bit, and weirdly enough, in the video, because I'd heard so much about this Hitman guy. I was trying to find him. I was like, "Who's Hitman? Who's Hitman?" Now, as I'm older, I'm like, "Oh, there he is." But like, I was like, "Who's this Hitman guy? Who is he?" And it's Snoop and Dre with DOC in the back riding around, and you're like, it feels like a continuation of the G Thing video in a lot of ways. Like those guys in the Impala just driving around, and it's just, I remember. Was there a making of for that video? There might have been a making of for that. I know there was for Forgot About Dre, but that is a great lead single, incredible lead single. And it's, as an example, it's one of those kind of club classics. Like it's one of those club classics that just like the average white person will put on. That's how you that's your barometer that it's kind of hit kind of folkloric or was that like mainstream levels. Like, oh, let's just put on Still Dre.
But also, it was good to be able to see Snoop and Dre reuniting after all these years. We get into Big Egos featuring Hitman.
Yeah.
What did you think?
Loved it. It's a great kind of album track. Incredible drums on that. Really big, chunky, crunchy drums on that. Piano. It kind of continues the kind of use of piano from Still Dre. Great synths on there. Great verse by Hitman. And I can't remember what it samples. I want to say it samples a John Barry, or it replays a John Barry tune from the Persuaders. I could be wrong, but I think it samples or it replays a John Barry thing from the Persuaders thing. But anyway, don't quote me. And then at the end of that, you have a little skit. It goes into a skit that Hitman sings, actually, which is like a kind of replay. Exactly. Of Love Don't Live Here Anymore. I think they're leaving a like voice message to some lady called Tammy that he's dating. But funny, it's supposed to be the version. It feels like it's the version of These Nuts for this album that Warren G did on Chronic. So it's it's cool. It's a Big Egos is cool, and that little outro to that song is cool.
I think Explosive was what about that? That features Corrupt, Nate Dogg, and Six.
Yeah, and 6'2" is one of DOC's artists. He's an incredible artist himself, and he had a record out. Dre's produced quite a few records for him, but Explosive is just like it's an iconic record. I think Chris the Glove Taylor might have helped co-produce or co-write that. I think he's uncredited. Don't quote me.
Let me see. No, he's credited. Yeah,
Chris Taylor. Yeah, cool.
Yeah, he's credited on it. Yeah,
Chris Taylor was involved in that, and that samples Isaac Hayes Bumpy's Lament, which I think Erykah Badu had sampled the same year for Bag Lady. I think she sampled it for or replayed it for Bag Lady, but that track originally was called The Way I Be Pimpin', which Royce the 5'9" wrote. So it was a solo record by Dre. And that leaked really early in the process, because I remember that coming out like, oh my gosh, amazing. And Dre was rapping, telling pimp stories, but I think he kind of correctly said, let's just take this off and make this a song. Let's give it more Nate, Hitman on it, and the track's iconic, man. Incredible production, incredible drum pattern. And Kanye even says that like he based his whole early Rockefeller production style off of this beat. So Can't Be Life, Can't Be Life, Never Change, things like that. He used that drum pattern as the kind of template he used Explosive as a template for those beats. So incredible track. And Nate has a great moment where he references Ain't No Fun If the Homies Can't Have None. It's just great. It's a great tune.
And
Corrupt Krup's verse, by the way, I remember we had this builder called Jim at my mum, who was doing some work at my mum's house. I remember he came in while I was playing it. And Jim's, older Irish guy, and he was just telling me off, like, he was listening to Krup's verse, and he was like, bitch, 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 bitch. What's this all this about? Is that what you're gonna grow up to be? I remember he told me off for that. And I was like, no, you don't understand, Jim. This music's amazing.
We've got a track that I think, Exhibit. A
Yeah,
track that. What's the difference? Yes.
Yeah, that samples Charles Aznavour, mispronouncing his name, old kind of French jazz record. That's an amazing record. And then Blue Cantrell sampled it later. Yeah, but this is an example of why this album is great. Dre's not strictly speaking sampling. He's not taking that thing and putting it in the MPC. If you listen to it, everything is separated. So he's replayed everything. There's a horn, there's a trombone or whatever going out of one ear that's playing the main line, and everything is replayed from the open hi-hats, from the ride hi-hats, to give that kind of big orchestral feel, because it feels like a messy orchestra. That's what it feels like. And this is a crazy record. Dre talks about, his old. I've never worked out if he's actually talking about Ruthless, or he's talking about Death Row in this, because he's telling the story about back when Q was rolling with Lorenzo in the Benzo. But he says a line, speaking on reunions, move units, then talk shit, and we can do this. So I don't know whether he's talking about. I can't work out whether he's talking about the Ruthless guys, or if he's talking about.
I would doubt. I think because they had made peace by that time. I think a lot of this was after he had to leave Death Row with left everything, left 100 million on the table, and just walked away.
It could have been in reference to. It could have been in reference to the Death Row, because they were.
By 2001, they weren't really doing anything.
No, but on that Chronic 2000 album, there was basically that album and Too Gangsta for Radio were mostly about Dre and Snoop. They're mostly basically records aimed at Dre and Snoop. But what's the difference? The original version was had Hitman on it, who had an incredible verse. So you can find that on YouTube. The original version, Hitman's verse is incredible. His verse is crazy. But I think maybe Jimmy Iovine or someone thought like, oh snap, there's too much Hitman on this. Hitman's verse was crazy. And then Eminem comes in with the kind of anchor verse, and a typical Eminem verse around that time, talking about Kim and
yeah. Fuck that. Not track 8 was bar 1 with Eddie Griffin.
One. Yeah, with Eddie, which samples, I think, samples Cannibal Adderley, Pounding, and it's just, and that goes into, it's just basically them at a bar, because there was a bar in LA called Bar 1. I don't know if it's still there, and then it leads into one of my favorite beats on this album.
Lightspeed featuring Hitman.
I love this. I love this beat so much. I think Dre's verse is dope. I think Hitman's verse is dope, and the beat is just right to it, man. The kick in this beat. If you want to test a sound system or something, or you want to test your car sound system, this beat's crazy. One of my favorite beats on the album.
I've heard Eminem talk about Forgot About Dre, and how he the sense where people had especially after he did the Firm and Been There Done That, it felt like, oh yeah, man, I think it felt almost like he was they could call it washed out. And I think signing Eminem before he did this album, almost like, oh, Dre's back.
It kind of saved him. It kind of saved him because the Firm album, the Aftermath album, if you think about it, Dre didn't he had his hand over that album, but the album didn't, apart from Been There Done That, it didn't have like massive singles and all that. type of stuff. He kind of takes it out of his canon of like solo albums or whatever. But the Firm album, I think that needs reappraisal. That album is actually pretty dope. I think the album's pretty dope, and it's not like the album's bad. I think there's so many tracks on there from Phone Tap to Untouchable. I just think with the Firm, they led with the wrong single. They led with Firm Biz, and they should have led with Phone Tap. Phone Tap was like a street single where that should have been the main thing. That would have changed the whole perception of that album. Because Firm Biz is a banger, mind you, but we're in the Jiggy era. Anyway, don't get me started on that album. What about Dre? I think Eminem's spoken and said that like the original reference that he wrote was for Dre and Snoop. So Snoop would have been rapping Eminem's bars. But then I weirdly think this is, and maybe people are going to flame me for this, but this is the most dated sounding beat on the album.
Oh, which one? Next, forget about Dre.
It's the most dated, and I say that because this is the only one that uses that double time, the double time flow and the double time drum pattern on that. I think it's a beautiful beat. But for me, it's the most like, oh, this feels like very much of his time. The lyrics are incredible, and I think Dre's second verse, he goes, what M writes for him, he goes ballistic. He goes ballistic on that, and if it was ever in doubt that you forgot about Dre, you better go get medicine for that, and you know what I mean. You better go to the doctor and get some medicine for that. You don't forget. Unamnesia yourself, you know. Yeah, no, that's a crazy record. I remember one of my memories of that. So I remember like going into the playground with the lyrics written down because my friends hadn't heard it. Like shout out to Yannick, they hadn't heard it. I remember rapping the lyrics and thinking I was so special because I was like, I have heard this song and you haven't heard it. Anyway, that song's cool, but like of these songs, it's like the one I might play the least.
Okay. We moved into next episode featuring Snoop. It felt like a stop and go. It was probably the shortest track on there too. Well, not the shortest, but 2 minutes and 41 seconds.
Yeah. I think the song's incredible. Samples, David McCallum's The Edge. David McCallum, yeah. The Edge, and replay. Well, it doesn't sample it; it replays it, and it's an incredible record. Funny enough, there is a song called "The Next Episode" that was originally on the first pressing of Doggy Style. There's 2 records off of Doggy Style that got taken off. One's called G's Up, Hoes Down. The other one is The Next Episode. But because they couldn't clear the sample of the original Next Episode, it's gone. And the only version that exists is a really bad internet. And that's Dre and Snoop. And it would have felt like a nice continuation of the line that they say in Chiefing. So chill to the next episode. So for anyone that hasn't heard it, just Google or YouTube The Next Episode original Doggy Style. But this version is incredible. And I think it's one of Dre's, if not biggest single. It's one that immediately, it's basically one that can save a DJ's night. You know, on that, I'll have a little bit of a breather because let me find my next record. You can put this, you can actually let it run until Nate says smoke weed every day, which is actually such a ridiculous headline when you add it. Like if it was like one of those like 60s, you know, when they would do backmasking in the 60s, or they'd be like the subliminal messages. It's like, oh, you're telling everyone to go smoke weed. But no, that album, that song is out of here, man. It's a classic. It's a classic. Great production, from the drums to if you put headphones on and you're listening to all the extra production that's going on, panning, just audio. There's ear candy in there, man. And Dre's like the best in show with that ear candy stuff.
Yeah. And I think Snoop really had rediscovered his style and his voice.
Style and his flow, and like he's talking some stuff that it was until years later that I understood. So there's a line on there where he's basically saying to one of his young ladies, put some dope on this jet. And it's a very Rakim kind of thing where the sentence runs into the next thing. Put some dope on this jet, out of town, put it down for the father of rap, where the line runs into, and that's like Snoop rapping at like a level that he hadn't rapped at for a
Mm.
long time, you know. So yeah, there's great lyricism there. And you know, you got Corrupt, you know, dropping in some ad libs and stuff. And shout out to Corrupt, Young Gotti, get better. He had you know, some health issues recently. So
Mm.
and
Yeah.
and yeah, and yeah, you got Corrupt on it, and the video is an event itself. The video is actually an event. You know, I don't know where they film it, but it's the video is you know, is a real event. I don't know maybe that was Philip G. Atwell that directed that, because I know we did a lot of the videos on
Mm.
Dre in those early days. So it might have been Philip Atwell, who also did Forgot About Dre.
Okay.
The video for that, but great song, great song.
And we move to Let's Get High featuring Hitman, Corrupt, and Miss Rock.
I mean, if you're that way inclined, if you participate, get high, sure. As a 12-year-old, I was listening to it as like, right, this is a raunchy song, and this is funky as well. I think this is one of those that Dre might have gotten into trouble for, because it lifts the bass line for the Fatback Band's backstroking. So that line, dun 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 that's, if you listen to Backstroking by the Fatback Band, that's that. But what Dre does and what that crew does is they take the bass line and they reinterpret it and they give it life. And like the fact that a kid like me from Hackney, East London, is aware of the Fatback Band because of that, that's testament to like the power of hip hop to like reinterpret, repurpose, and all that. But I love that song because I think Dre's verse is great, Hitman's is great, Corrupt's is, and Miss Rock, who not heard anything from since
Yeah.
Miss Rock, but the song's like so dope. It's one of those album cuts that doesn't get nearly as much love, but like drums is crazy, bass line is crazy, and just general production. And it's one of the funkier tunes on there. So if we're talking about G funk, this is like this is the G funk really coming out. It's a funky record, and shout out to the Fatback Band as well.
The Bitch Niggas is featuring Snoop.
Whoa.
So that was a vibe.
Yeah. No, that
yeah.
that song is really dope. And it's I think it's a real FU to any of the critics and stuff like that. I think also there's like a not thinly veiled. I think like there's a shot there to CJ Mack. You know, the great CJ Mack, who's a great rapper from Hitman, because and there might have been some controversy at the time. I remember, you know, my geeky self looking at the message boards and stuff, because CJ Mack had a song called Mr. Powder Puff, and I think CJ Mack had sent some shots at, you know, Dre and them. But you know, big up CJ Mack. He's a great rapper. But yeah, so it was basically an FU to all their haters, basically, at the time, of which there were many.
Yeah. Yeah, even 6'2", because he was Hitman is 6'2". They did quite a bit on here.
They did. Hitman especially. Yeah, he was sort of tipped as the next Snoop. He was tipped as the next breakout star, and this album would have you think that. Just as a side note, the end of the Forgot About Dre video, if you watch it, there's a little clip of Hitman rapping this song called Last Days. And Dre's like, Hitman 2000, like the album was supposed to be coming in 2000. And that song Last Days, look at it on YouTube. It's a banger. It's one of those things, you know, that hurts me. There's so many tunes from Aftermath that have never come out and they still sound fresh. Listen to Last Days. Hitman's rapping his ass off. The beat by Dre is crazy. It's crazy. It's crazy. It's crazy, bro. It's crazy. But yeah, so Hitman is featured heavily on this album.
After the car bomb, we had Murder Inc., Hitman, and Miss Rock.
Crazy record, man. You've got they're reinterpreting John Carpenter's theme from Halloween, the piano line.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe people had sampled it before or replayed it. Well, they never replayed it like this, and that's the magic of this album. Dre has the wherewithal to be like, yeah, I just want to replay this, put some drums around it, and the drums on this, you know, some of these drum sounds I can hear throughout the album. Like they're either drums that have been pitched up, pitched down, re-EQ'd or whatever. You can just hear it. And Dre, the drums on this album changed my flipping life. They're the best drums I've ever heard on a hip hop record. This is when we used to care. This is when beat makers used to care about drums, and everyone wasn't using the same packs of drums. You actually had to go out, sample drums, clean them up. Look, I'm just going to show the people this issue of
Source was that?
No, Scratch magazine.
Okay.
Scratch magazine. It's like Dre talks about his production process in this, and he talks about sampling. He's still sampling records for drums. He's still sampling records for drums and using those drums, cleaning them up. So the drums on this album need their own special shout out now.
Yeah, because I just got here is that Melman on the drums.
He knows.
Magic,
this guy knows. This guy knows. But I said that earlier. It's that Pittsburgh sound. What Dre did on this album is he combined the Pittsburgh sound, which was like Sam Snead and Melman, and brought that Dre touch to it. Yeah.
Okay, Education with LD Griffin.
Yeah. But people like this skit and I didn't love it as a kid. I was like, yeah, I get it, but I just want to, and Eddie Griffin's like hilarious and whatever.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah. But this also samples this is actually a sample, not a replay. This samples Diamonds Are Forever, because in my other life I'm a James Bond nerd. So it's a version, an instrumental version of the Diamonds Are Forever title track from some compilation or whatever. So yeah, that is a direct sample of a version of Diamonds.
I don't think the skits were as good as the Chronic.
They weren't. So the ones with Snoop were really good. The ones like with Snoop and he's talking about Little Half Dead, they're fun because it's always good to hear Snoop in his element talking because he's just naturally funny. But they're not as good. I'll agree. They're not as good. They're not as good.
Yeah, and it's memorable as well. Yeah. So we had some LA niggas featuring Defery, Exhibit, Nocturnal, Time Bomb, King T, MC Ren, and Cocaine.
Yeah. Love it. I mean, if you look at it, if you break it down, they're all doing this start-stop flow because the beat stops. There's always a pause in the beat where there's just silence. And what I think the concept is great because they're all borrowing opening lines from classic West Coast songs. So like, so in my younger days, I used to sport a rag, which is passing me by the Far Siders. So in my younger days, I used to sport a shag, you know. So and then King T's like, I'm coming straight out of Compton with a loose cannon, smoking big green, call it Bruce Banner. You know, you got that. You got Exhibit. I can't remember who Exhibit's. I'm gonna get flamed for forgetting Exhibit's. Who Exhibit's referencing, but they're all referencing something. You got Ice-T 6 in the Morning reference in there. It's a really great record. It was kind of, and it's MC Ren does the intro. I would have loved an Ice Cube verse on it. You know what I mean? To just kind of be like, all right, cool, we're back. But then they later did Hello and Chin Check. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's all good.
We had Housewives featuring Corrupt and Hitman,
which was originally on Corrupt Streets as a Mother album. So there's a version of that on Streets as a Mother. But yeah, there's a version of that, which I think Streets as a Mother came out around the same time as 2001. But no, I think it's a great song. It's a great song. It references Corrupt, references Sugar Hill Gang. Shout out to Corrupt, man. He's one of the greatest rappers of all time. Corrupt was
not. What's his name? Daz was absent from this album.
Yeah, I wanted to say that was kind of in my notes actually, and I think, look, I'm not going to. I don't want to get into problems with Daz on like. I mean, he doesn't know who I am, but like the Dog Pound are like one of my favorite groups ever. I think they're one of the best rap groups ever. And Dog Foods is a canon hip hop album. One of the sadder things of recent times as a hip hop fan is to see the fallout between Dre and Daz. But it's always been something that's been there. I remember like late 90s, you know, when Daz wasn't on this and Corrupt was, and then Daz wasn't on any of Snoop's, hasn't really been on any of Snoop's solos since since Dogfather, but they have their own internal problems. That's family business, but it's really sad because, you know, and it's also one of the things that was missing from Snoop's Missionary album. I was like, I just want one reunion record with everyone, and Daz was absent, but I think I know why. Because Daz in so many interviews has gone and derided Dre and what Dre did or didn't produce or whatever on those albums. But Dre's just like, I'm just gonna show you how good I am. Like, you're good, you're one of my good apprentices and proteges, but I'm gonna show you, like, you're not me. And so I think that's really it's sad because you want to hear. Daz has one of these flows that is inimitable. Like the way Daz bounces on a beat is like he's Daz's flow is, no one does flows like Daz on a beat. But yeah, he is missing from this album. But I think it would have been too much of a liability because also Daz was missing from the Chronic tour, from the Chronic 2000, from the 2001 tour. From the Up in Smoke tour. He was missing from that because I just think he would have been a liability. So it's just like, Snoop, like, I'm blessed. I don't want to jeopardize our relationships over here. Loose cannon. So yeah.
Is it Accurate?
Accurate.
Yeah, featuring Hitman.
Yeah, that's the Hitman solo record. And people, you know, when I was back in the day, people complained about this record because I was like, oh, too much Hitman. I love the record. I love it. I think it's a kind of cool. It was just showing you the faith that Dre had in Hitman. Hitman was actually, I think he was co-managed by Taz Arnold from Sarah Partners. Because if you look at Hitman's publishing on that, it's Big Yacht Publishing, and Big Yacht Publishing is I think that's Taz's production or publishing company. But yeah, I think that's how Taz and Sarah got involved. They were weirdly involved in the album. I think they might have even been the people that turned around and said, just call it 2001 after it's called 2000. I think Taz gave that to Dre, I think. But yeah, Ackright is cool. It's not like a memorable one in the same way. Like, people don't talk about Ackright. It's just showing how much faith Dre had in saying, like, look, I'm gonna give this guy like his whole solo record. Because Snoop didn't have, strictly speaking, he didn't have like a solo on the first Chronic. You see what I'm saying? And Snoop was out and out the breakout star of that first Chronic album. So it was a sort of show of faith by giving Hitman his own record, and it's cool. Like, I know, I play it, and it's a great beat, but it's not. You wouldn't say like this is a classic record, but I love it, and I love Hitman as well.
Yeah, I like what Michael says. He says Hitman had a pen, but no real it factor to carry the record itself.
Big up to Michael Brown, and look, I love Hitman, but the problem is, and this is the thing, it goes back to something I said earlier, which is about story. Now, on Hitman's solo single, which was going to be one of the first singles, Last Days, listen to it. It's basically his version of a Dre introduction record. You know, I said Dre has like, my name is, what's my name? Hitman acronym for highly intensive tongue talents making all nervous. That's what Hitman stands for. That's why there's 2 T's in it. And that was his thing. He had one article in The Source talking about him coming out, and they were like, oh, can you give us any information on you? And he was like, oh, I'll reveal that when time comes out. So there was a lot of mystery. The problem is, and the problem with Aftermath being co-owned by Interscope at that time, is they needed sales. I don't think Jimmy Iovine was going to ever let anything come out that didn't hit the kind of Eminem 3 million mark, or this, what later became G Unit, the juggernaut 10 million albums. It was not. And I think as dope as Hitman is, he didn't have as much commercial appeal, because, mind you, Dre had previously signed an East Coast rapper called Last Emperor, who was ostensibly a backpack rapper, like lyrical as hell, but he never came out. And part of it was the commercial pressure. I think if Dre didn't have the commercial pressure to follow, that's why Rakim never came out. As much as Rakim's the god, love him.
Was he on Aftermath?
Rakim was on Aftermath, signed in 2000. They were supposed to drop an album called Oh My God. It never came out. There's smatterings of singles that are around, but that's why Rakim on Truth Hurts record. That was supposed to be his intro to coming out. And there's smatterings of records. Like Heat by 50 Cent was a Rakim beat originally, as was In the Club, I think. But just to speak to Hitman, Dre's artists, his marquee artists, barring Kendrick, who was his own entity, they all have a level of story that you can latch onto. What is Snoop's story? Long Beach, Rolling 20 Crip, sold drugs, this, that, the Philip Walder Merriam case, all of that type of stuff. Even though Tupac wasn't his artist necessarily, he still came out under his auspices. Tupac came with a story. 50 Cent came with a story, shot 9 times. Eminem, the whole stuff with his mum. All of these marquee artists require a story because that's how the public latch on to the thing. Versus like, let's just say Rakim's sign, and Rakim is the god MC. Like Rakim's thing, he's not going to bring guns out. He's going to be talking from an observatory level. So Hitman, similar to Bishop Lamont, was in that space. They were like in that kind of West Coast Nas kind of space, lyrical monsters, and could really deliver you some great, amazing verses. But what was the story? I think that was the commercial appeal. That was a little rant, but it was just to give
That's right.
on Hitman, because he was a phenomenal talent.
Penultimate one is Bang Bang, Nocturnal, and Hitman.
Yeah, great tune, stands up, great beat. Just basically talking about the violence in LA, and talking about people still play hating, but Dre ain't changed. I'm just a lot smarter now because these cats is banging 10 times harder now. By the time they call around, and you can tell like Eminem's pen is on there. That's like the prototypical Eminem 98, 99 flow. Like, but it also shows why Eminem's like a really great writer for Dre. He can get in Dre's head, and he's a great ghostwriting or co-writing or just writing is just great. Jay-Z did it deftly with Still Dre, where he basically gave Dre's perspective, and the writing that M does for Dre on this album is great, but you can tell that's some Eminem flows. And the record's cool. Hitman is on there as well, as is Nocturnal. And Nocturnal was another kind of Aftermath adjacent talent. He was also from Long Beach, and he was sort of going to follow in the kind of Snoop footsteps, but he dropped The Way I Am, dropped that album, which had The Knock with Missy, that Drake, a couple other songs. But this Bang Bang is cool, and it's a kind of cautionary tale kind of song, but it still bangs. Pun intended.
Was Nocturnal on the he had the Chronic, the Compton album?
No, I don't think he was on the Compton album. He had a song called Bad Intentions that Dre did. They did with Dre for the Wash soundtrack. All I really know is your hoe wants to be with me and she ain't playing and what I'm saying. So they had that tune that was produced by Mahogany for the Wash soundtrack. But and Dre's produced some songs for him, and Scott Storch. I think he had a single called The Way I Am with Snoop on it that Scott Storch produced. And he was Aftermath adjacent, but I don't think he was ever signed to Aftermath.
Okay. So we get into the final track, The Message.
The Message, yeah. Dre's brother Tyree, who passed away,
with Mary
J. Blige, and Rel from Aftermath, from Rockefeller. He was a Rockefeller artist. This beat is actually the only beat that isn't produced or made by Dre and Melman. It's Lord Finesse, the great funky technician. And I think Melman, Melman procured this beat from him. Like, like producers, especially those like real dope producers, they'd have like beat sharing sessions where they go shopping together for records. And they all are plugged into each other, whether it's the Digging in the Crates crew, the Beat Nuts, they all Pete Rock, they all know and respect each other. There was a real producer culture that I geeked out on and looked up to as a kid. And I think Melman heard Lord Finesse playing this beat one time, and it was known as the Chinese beat. I think they called it the Chinese beat because of that harp thing. It sounded very,
Yeah,
very,
clock and a half.
yeah, of of that region, and yeah, and so I think Lord Finesse came and sold the beat to Dre, and I think he watched them record it and stuff like that. But I think Royce wrote that verse, I believe. I think Royce the 5'9" wrote that verse. I think Royce apparently would have been on the album a lot more. Royce the 5'9" is another monster, like phenomenal MC, one of my favorites. I think he would have been on it a lot on this album a lot more. But I think there was some like managerial kind of palavers that I'm sure he'll talk about in some interview somewhere. But yeah, and it's a heartfelt one. It's a great way to end the album because it's Dre talking about his brother who passed on during the NWA tour, like got into a street fight.
Wow.
I don't think he'd ever addressed it, and it's kind of a kind of a tender way to end this album. And then you kind of segue into this Cheech, this Tommy Chong outro. Tommy Chong does the outro, which is like to have one of the ultimate stoners doing a marijuana related outro to the ultimate sequel, weed album. Is kind of symbolic. So yeah, the message into that Tommy Chong outro.
The album worldwide sold over 10 million.
Yeah.
Did you expect it to? Was that the number you expected, or what was?
I mean, like I think it eventually sold 10 million. I think out the gate it hit 6, and it didn't even go to number 1 when it first dropped. I remember it being like, is it going to be number 1? No, it didn't. It was number 2. I can't remember. It might have been. I'm going to say. I can't remember who picked it to number 1 at that time, but like it didn't matter because the album was number 1 to me. It was number 1 to me and made me go like, I want to go make beats. So it crept to 10 million over the intervening years.
Yeah,
I think it stalled about 6 million a few years after. I say stalled. That's but no,
yeah.
that's going to be a juggernaut. Like when you think about it, Eminem that year, 99, had dropped his debut Slim Shady LP, which did crazy numbers. And then you've got him, you're bringing his audience, who might not necessarily have been Dre's audience, into this highly anticipated album. He's heavily featured on it. From his pen is featured on it, and he's got some verses on it, and that helped push it. The visuals helped push it. The reunion of Snoop, it was like a perfect storm of things landing, because it was almost, I think this might have been it had this album not done what it was supposed to do. It might have been it for a while, because hip hop isn't very forgiving. It isn't very forgiving in terms of like, particularly during that 90s period where sales meant everything. Like now, gets 20,000, like 20,000 sold in the first week, which is like would be laughed at in the 90s. So off the back of the Aftermath Presents LP and then the Firm album and some sort of like not so hot responses, like it could have been it, but like this album, Dre just assembled the best session musicians in LA, from Mike Elizondo, Kamara Camben, Scott Storch from Philadelphia, Sean Cruz, and obviously people who might be uncredited in the liner notes, but Chris the Glove, and he brought DOC back in there, one of his secret weapons, the great DOC Tracy Curry, to kind of help push him and be that critical person who'll say like, don't do this, do that, almost like an exec producer kind of thing. So the album did what it's supposed to do. So 10 million, I'm not surprised, but the album is Thriller levels in my household. It's Thriller levels. Like it's one of the most important albums I've ever heard in my life because of what the impact it's had on my life. Not because of the content. Like I'm not throwing up gang signs, but like sonically, it made me pay attention to every snare, every hi-hat, it made me see the music. It made me see the hip hop band. And I've never heard anything like that before. I never heard music be so clean.
Mm.
I want to see. I actually, it's so much so I want to see the Pro Tools files. Like one of my dreams is to go to the studio and be like, "Yo, show me the Pro Tools files. I want to see how you, I want to see how you did. I want to see how you did this because I'm fascinates me, man. This album, and that is actually a gift of the scarcity of information about this album. The myth builds, and it's a lesson in it's a lesson that this digital era could learn about, like scarcity builds myth.
Mm.
You have to have something to buy into first and want to be excited by, but like this album and the making thereof is so mythical. And I'll say this, people, there's been a lot of discourse online about Dre making beats. Like, has anyone seen Dre use an NPC? Da, 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 da. And basically, the Avengers of hip hop came out in defense of Dre. Like, I seen it with my own eyes. And da, 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 da. Anyone who's ever worked with Dre knows he gets busy. But there's something magic about, in an era where everyone's showing you their process and showing you how they got there. There's something magical about an album that there's not one frame of footage to show you them messing it up or coming up with ideas. There's the pictures on the CD, but there's something magic about, like, wow, what did you leave on the cutting room floor?
Yeah, but we know that Dre is very picky when it comes. I mean, everyone knows about Detox, the album.
Don't we? Don't know about Detox. Originally supposed to be. I remember back on MTV, he was like, "It's going to be in 5.1 Dolby surround sound." Denzel Washington is going to narrate the album. As early as 2000 and the year 2002, Dre was like, "Yeah, it's going to be in Dolby 5.1. I'm mixing it now. Denzel's going to be narrating it. It's going to be a character called Detox."
And I'm sure I'm sure it's complete. I'm sure it's done, but I'm sure he just felt like the moment has passed. And I think it's important to recognize that actually that there's a moment, and by the time after this album, we had the rise of New York. So we had the Jay-Z's. We started having Murder Inc. doing their thing. So it was almost like, wow, the landscape was changing, and there was different. The music was going in a different direction, which was speaking differently. There's more like party, let's have fun. So yeah, Nelly. So the way hip hop was going was a very popular type of direction, which didn't. And then Dre's like, "Wow, how the message that we have from the West Coast? Is it going to be drowned out if we try and release something like that?"
This is what I'll say to that, and this is just as an observation. I'd say Dr. Dre's, like, his second or third run with Aftermath, it less became about the West Coast. If you think about it, Dre became, after 2001 dropped, basically Dre became Mr. $250,000 a track. So we think about it, after 2001, we got Bilal, we got Fast Lane and Sally from Bilal's album. Dre was coming in and dropping singles, and they were like events. We get Family Affair by Mary J. Blige, which is a floor filler. We get Dre was still doing blockbuster things, but it wasn't West Coast related. If you think about the 50 Cent album, that's Dre mixed that, produced like 6 records. Like, so Dre realized that, like, yo, if I pigeonhole myself to California, that's amazing, but like, it's the world. I want the world. And like, he while he kept his foot in California with, he dropped the Games album, one of the West Coast saviors at the time, but he was branching out. He was Mr. $250,000 a track. He was releasing you get one Dre track for your album. You're talking about Let Me Blow Your Mind. You're talking about Rich Girl by Gwen Stefani. You're talking about all these records, and like, it was more branching into that exec producer thing, because the 50 Cent album was such a juggernaut. And then I think you're right in saying that, yes, the East came back, the South came and changed the game forever. Like we're still in the rapture.
Oh, Cash Money, yeah, we had the Cash Money.
Yeah, but post Cash Money, we're in a rapture of that Atlanta thing. The Atlanta's reign has not ceased. They've had a ceaseless run since like the early 2000s. So, but then Dre's smarts are like, well, okay, cool. I'm approaching my 50s. I'm in my 40s, my 50s. I can keep producing. He did Busta Rhymes' album Big Bang, which is one of Busta's best produced albums. And actually he moved into the exec role and the label exec role, and then Beats came along. And I think by the time you're into product and you're making billions, you're kind of going to yourself, and I'm just saying this as an observer, you're kind of going, do I want to sit around making beats and having this sonic acuity and caring about every snare and every hertz, every 50 hertz roll off that I've got to do when kids are listening to it on really bad MP3s? Kids don't even care. Like the way I will buy a pair of headphones, like like really like deep detailed headphones, like I right in front of me I have Genelec speakers that I've had since 07. Like I care about this stuff, but there's a generation, my godchildren, bless you, my godchildren don't care about audio fidelity. They just want to hear it. Music is so much more of a commodity now. It's just another thing, so they don't care about the sonics of it. So if you're Dr. Dre and you obsess about everything, why am I going to spend all this time when no one's gonna care, and the reward for the effort is diminished? So he makes beats, becomes a billionaire, and he releases when he wants to. But then
what happened to Missionary? Because that came out last year.
Missionary was dope, and I talk about this with my friend.
It disappeared. I mean, it was
couple things, man. Missionary was an incredible album. I think it was an incredible album. Maybe one or two songs I was like, you could have had a posse cut on there, but it was. I've always said Eminem is the most spoiled of Dr. Dre's proteges, in that Eminem has had Dre his whole career. He's had access to Dre his whole career, and Snoop was his brightest star. He was his brightest natural star, but because of the environment of Death Row and because of all of that, Snoop and Dre never had. If you think about it, they had one album together. They had one album together, and maybe you could say, Murder Was the Case, Dre was involved in that, and the Dogfood album, which he mixed. But like, he was absent on Dogfather, and Snoop suffered as a result of that. DJ did his thing, but Snoop needed Dre. Dre's the only one, barring DJ Quick and Pharrell later on, who know how to produce Snoop vocally. So with Missionary, he locked Snoop in. He got the ICU, which is Fred Rec and Bluetooth Beats. I think his name is. I'm butchering his name. Sorry if you're on the chat, bro. Dope guy. Obviously, Focus is in there. One of the great, architects of the Aftermath sound. But there was a couple problems with that. To me, is that like Snoop does too much. Snoop does way too much, because after he got that Missionary thing, Snoop dropped another Death Row album. So you just diminished the market value of this album, which I played. I've got the album on vinyl, which I haven't even opened. I've got it on vinyl, and I'll never play it, because I was like, this is a Dre and Snoop album. Do you know what this means? From the intro where they sample Stakes is Dre replays Stakes is High. Well, in fact, the intro is People Make the World Go Round, the Stylistic / Jackson 5 record, and then Snoop, the first song is a reinterpretation of Stakes is High by De La Soul. And then like you've got Into the Blue, Out the Blue, which is like, I forget the song, but it samples this obscure like record, and then it also reinterprets Paper Planes by MIA. And then you've got Gorgeous with Janae Aiko, which is a crazy record. But the problem is that like they didn't shoot enough videos for it. And I think the rollout, as good as it was, Snoop was doing too much. And then the other thing that happened, unfortunately, the elections happened and the inauguration and all that. And I think the political conversation clouded that. And it's just, if Snoop had been a lot younger and less of a if he'd been a newer artist, you might have said like, listen, you're not dropping another album for like the next 6 months. We are going to pump this album because the album is so dope.
Well, yeah, what does Michael say? Michael was saying that it was overproduced. He hated the hooks, and but it was. I know what they were pushing their drink, their gin and juice brand.
Yeah.
But
fair dues. People have said the same thing. Sorry, go on, Andy. Sorry, go on.
No, but I think you're right about the timing because, you know, the timing in which it came out, we were occupied by the elections, and then so there was just so much going on that it's unusual for Dre and Snoop to come out with an album and just disappear because no one was paying attention.
I mean, there's a couple things. They're men in their 50s and now 60s with Dre. Had they released it as a true anniversary album the year before when it was supposed to come out, then it would have made waves because we're not in a political cycle year.
Yeah,
and I think when I say political cycle, it was like because of the inauguration and all that type of stuff, it just had a big impact on Snoop's thing. I love Snoop. Snoop's one of my favorite rappers, but like it just had a major effect. But yeah, the album, I can hear what Michael's saying, and I respect that because I listened to it going like, oh man, like, where's this person and where's that Phil? You're not going to get that from men in their 50s. It's a mature album. And look, Nas and Primo's album has been critiqued a lot.
Has that come out?
Light years, and that's a crazy album. Now, part of the critique with that album and most albums in general, and this is a problem that we're just gonna have to face now. John McMillan, shout out to John McMillan from Game of Thrones and Family Man. He says this thing. John's a scholar of hip hop. You need to have him on. But John talks a lot about fan rap, and we are in the era of fan rap where the people rapping were once fans of these people. You also have it where producers, I can now talk as though I'm a peer of Dr. Dre or DJ Premier because I have access to cheap music equipment. You see what I'm saying? Whereas like it used to cost you something to go in, to buy an MPC, to suffer. Now you can get a ripped copy of Fruity Loops, allegedly, and make beats off of that. I don't use Fruity Loops. I pay for all my stuff. Endorse me, someone, Cubase. And so you could do that. So people think they're peers. So what happens is I saw it happen with the Primo thing. People were like, yeah, I wouldn't have given that beat to Nas, or Primo, I sampled this record before you. And it's like the nerve of you. Like Chris Martin, works of Mart. Like, how do you feel you were a peer? So we're in the era where, because of online discourse, which is great, everyone feels that they are on the level of a Primo, a Nas, a Dre, a thing. So we all have our things, and we're fans as well. But you're not going to get, and I think for what it's worth, I think the Primo and Nas album was great, barring a few. I think track order wasn't my favorite, but you know, they could have reordered it or whatever. But and
so he didn't work with Hit Boy.
No. So this was part of his Legend series that he did did for Mass Appeal, where you know everyone had an album. Ghost, Ray, De La Soul, Slick Rick, you know, everyone had an album. But it was just the long-awaited collaboration with Primo, and you could say, well, it's 10 years too late or whatever, or 20 years too late. Here's the thing: it's the album we needed for this version of Nas. Like, I would have loved a whole album of what I call MPC 60 Primo, which is where as a fan, I'm such a fan of his. I know when he's using the MPC 60, and I know when he's using the MPC Renaissance, because the beat sounds super clean on the Renaissance, and we want to hear that MPC 60 grit. But that's not my place to say. They're making the songs that they want to make, and I've got to respect that. And when I play that album front to back, I'm like, oh, this is an album. This isn't an a la carte singles album. Similar to Missionary. You put it on, you do your housework, you drive your car. It's not a la carte singles. Barring Gorgeous on Missionary, there's no like out and out singles. You know, there's no like, I mean, there's single moments, but it's like you got to play it. Dre, as he does on most albums, is bleeding tracks into one another. Like if you listen to 2001, most of these tracks lead in. FU leads into Still Dre. you can hear the last effect of FU into Still Dre. Dre makes albums. So I think like we're in a timeline where it's a la carte. Give me a single, give me a single, give me a single, give me a single. Most of these people that you're getting singles from could not make an album to save their grandma. It's true, because the art of the album is lost in a world of like disposable music, and that's just real. So say with Missionary, why it didn't work, you're talking about 50-year-old men make rapping. For me, as someone who grew up listening to their music, I'll play it, I'll bump it, but the teenagers aren't bumping it. That's just the reality of it. So they made an age-appropriate album, just like Primo did, and these are albums that have to play as one body versus a la carte, a la carte, a la carte. I'm just going to listen to track 9. I'm not going to listen to that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but also, I think if you're thinking about album sales, I mean, who's buying them? You know, the people buying these albums are.
If you're trying Thriller, Thriller will never happen again. The 90s will never happen again. Monoculture, it could take a cataclysm, God forbid, for us to all be on one accord, but we don't. But like we will never have that moment where I remember as recently as say like 50 Cent's Get Rich or Die Trying. I remember because I was doing the Crouches at that point in time, the TV show, and I remember Robbie G. Shout out to Robbie. Robbie was asking me my opinion because he knew I was a hip hop nerd, and he was like, "What do you think about this 50 Cent album? Like, I want to buy it for my son. Is it age appropriate?" And his son's a big man now. His son's like 30 now. Shout out to Harley. And that was a moment where it was pop culture. 50 Cent's album, everyone was aware of it. The fact that white people were like, fiddy, 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 you know what I mean? That they were doing that whole thing, you know, and then you had, you know, in that early 2000s era, you had, you know, Outkast's album was doing numbers, Confessions by Usher was a blockbuster thing. And then the last real blockbusters were maybe the decade before. Maybe we peaked with like the one of the Adele albums, which sold 5, maybe 10 million, which is crazy in 2011 or whatever that it dropped. And you got Billie Eilish, but hip hop, by and large, isn't doing those juggernaut numbers like that because most people are dropping singles, you know. And there's great independent artists who've built up movements and almost cult-like movements, you know, the Griselda movement. They're doing numbers off of tours, you know. It's kind of very Wu-Tang-ish in terms of like the devotees to that whole movement. But you have we're never going to go back to the days of like people doing 3 million, you know, and the older artists get, the more it diminishes. It's just the cycle of life. It's just how
Yeah. So I would like out of a 10, what would you give the Chronic 2001?
11. I'd give it a clean 11, man. Best produced hip hop album of all time, best engineered album of all time. This is the album you use to test speakers, to test headphones. It's one of the best sounding it's the best sounding hip hop album, and it's just a classic piece of sonic of just engineering. I know Dre won best producer, you know, on behalf of this album, but I think he should have also won best engineered album if he didn't. I mean, at the Grammys.
Okay.
The engineering on this album and the mixing is like excellent.
I mean, if I was to, I mean, as much as I enjoyed it when it came out, I think for me there was a lot more variety in All Eyes on Me.
You think? I don't look. Tupac fans are people I don't want any problems with. I don't want any
those days have gone.
I don't want any problems with Tupac fans. I love Tupac. I love him. I think I don't want any problems with any Tupac fans because I know like they're just getting ready. But All Eyes on Me is not the album that 2001 is. I think All Eyes on Me.
So yeah, it's just putting some of the, you know, people giving it rating it at 5 mics on the source.
RD the Prairie Dog says no, it's an 8 out of 10. How old are you, RD? How old? What's your age? I want to ask.
Michael
Yeah,
said,
Michael Brown, he knows. Michael, the Chronic 2K is a 5 mic album. Of course it is. And they had the temerity to give it 4.5. I remember that. It's the issue with Jay-Z on the cover. I think it's December 1999. Jay-Z's the cover of The Source, and they gave Chronic 2001 4.5. Mad City is a dope album. GNX is what Missionary should have sounded like sonically. Absolute West Coast spun, but updated. Nobody was asking for nearly 60-year-old men to recreate the Chronic and Doggy Style again. No, they weren't. But I think big up RP Prairie Dog. You're my elder, so my apologies. Salute to you. You're my elder. Fair play. If that, the reason why I asked the age is because your age qualified will have some reference to your thing. So salute to you, RD the Prairie Dog. GNX is what Missionary. Kendrick fans are gonna flame me. I haven't replayed GNX since it came out. I haven't played it since it came out. I think it's one of those that will like I maybe get into down the line. But also there's just too much like new nerd discourse about the Kendrick album. Like when I see certain people talking about it, I'm like when I see certain guys from outside the quote unquote the quote unquote culture talking about it and essaying on it, I'm like, oh yeah. You're doing essays and your content farming, like yeah. Last week, like stop. So that was a little bit, but no, that's a fair take from Michael Brown. He's had some very, very sensible takes during this chat. You know what I mean? And he obviously knows his stuff. Big up RD Prairie Dog. He was living in LA for the first Chronic, and that's love, respect if he was there. And you're a little bit older than me, so it hits slightly different, probably.
Yeah, I was in LA during the year 2001.
Yeah.
I remember going to the Century Club.
You went to the Century Club? Wow.
Yeah, because I remember seeing Ricky Bell from Belvis DeVoe in the. Yeah. I did. Because I lived in LA for 3.5 years, and so all those places.
I love LA, man.
Yeah, and stuff. But and so when I remember seeing Snoop recording the video Snoop Doggy Dogg when I went to Long Beach.
Long Beach. Oh, he was on VIP Records. Was he?
I remember driving by and then seeing him on the roof.
And
they were doing the video shoots. And when you live in LA, you're seeing. I've seen. You'd see everyone. It's when you live there, you're seeing everyone. It's not a big deal because
it's true. I saw Michael Harry O, one of the founders of Death Row. Like, because when I stay in LA, I stay in Santa Monica, and he's just like, he was just walking late night. I was hanging out with my people, and I was like, "You're Harry O." Like, what's up? And he's mad tall, and I took a picture of him, but just off of I've got this picture of me and Harry O, and I'm like, rah, like Harry O, like rah. But you do see a lot of people, and it's I suppose the magic of it is because American culture, particularly Black American culture for us as like Black people, is the magnetic north to Blackdom. Growing up, everything seemed like magical and mythical, like the idea of bumping into Will Smith or whatever. It was crazy. And then I remember seeing J-Lo just on Santa Monica, like just casually.
Okay.
I would bump into Adam Sandler. Always goes to the same Pete's coffee shop.
Okay.
And in his shorts, you know what I mean? It's casual, but then seeing a British celebrity here. But Michael Brown says Kobe Bryant met his wife at the East Side is G'd Up video shoot. That's a great video. One of the video models from the East Siders video, I've only recently discovered who she was. She became a singer called Mimi, and she was on like Put It On Me, which is on the which Dre produced for the Training Day soundtrack. She's like one of the most beautiful girls in the video. So I was like, who is this? As a fan of King magazine, like who is this? Beautiful woman.
Video vixen. I mean, before we go, we do have to talk because I started off by saying about to prepare for this. I was listening to the 2001,
Yeah,
and it was really hard listening,
yeah, yeah.
because I'm just hearing, and I think subsequently Snoop, when he did stuff with Pharrell, isn't his message is not as vulgar as he is when he was on this album. But
Yeah.
it was I was like it was just like I- and what I would say is that during this time when the Chronic came out and Doggy Style, and I was in university listening to this, it wasn't hard not to see categorize women in the same way that they're talking about, and it seemed to feel a sort of denigration of how we saw black women, because there was so much said about them.
Mm.
And if you think a few years earlier, there was all this about you're my queen, you're beautiful. How do I talk to you? Come and and all of a sudden you're getting music that's saying they're bitches, they're hoes, and you're doing this, and that was selling, and all of a sudden that then replaced what we were thinking about.
So, who said it? Who said it? A rapper said it maybe last year. Oh, so annoyed that I can't recall, but someone basically said about Dre and NWA ushering in death and violence to hip hop, and that aesthetic. When you think about late 80s, talking about Africa medallions, Pan
Yeah,
African,
yeah.
and that
Mhm.
is particularly like the native tongues movement. There was a point where those two things existed. I mean, look, we talk about Schoolie D, PSK, and Ice-T 6 in the Morning, and there always being records that discussed the criminal life. You have Cool C and Steady B from Philadelphia, actual guys who did, gangster stuff. That's always existed, but there was a bit of a balance. I think it goes back to that thing I said about melody. At the point which it became catchy to sing those things, and then subsequently profitable because of how catchy it is, that's what happened. I think like melody is that intangible that travels through language, race, culture. If you become it, you're winning. And so like yeah, so special ed, shout out to you, special ed.
Very
Special ed, you said it. And actually he was shouted down, but he has a point. And look, if you're going to be able to have conversations, you need to have honest conversations about them. And I think there is a logic in terms of I mean, so I think I think there's a logic in terms of what special ed's saying. Like when it became profitable to do a type of to bring in a negative energy because it was selling, then people kept doing it. People who never had a kind of misogynistic leaning bones started doing it. Like Mama Said Knock You Out, and then 13 Shots to the Dome, which was kind of LL's response. You see what I'm saying? Mama Said Knock You Out, Marley Marl brought LL back after Walk Like a Panther and all that stuff. And then he did 13 Shots to the Dome, which was more of a street edge thing. You had On It, Throw Your Guns and Slam and all of this type of stuff. And then it's interesting that acts like Public Enemy or Tribe and the Native Tongues got labeled as conscious. So like as opposed to just hip hop, and it's subcategorized hip hop. And obviously, like, hardcore rap was hardcore and gangster rap, but there has to be an honest conversation about that. Now, the irony to all of this is that 2001 is still one of my favorite albums. So it's like me being a kind of level-headed person as a film goer, but saying like The Godfather or The Sopranos is my favorite thing. It's just I have the fortune of my background and my grounding and my foundation to not be susceptible to being like, you know what, I'm going to call a woman to this, or I'm going to start joining.
Yeah, but you know what? If I'm watching The Godfather or Scarface, I'm seeing people who don't look like me doing stuff that I'm not. I'm not going to. I'm not in the mafia. They're living in a world that is
so separated from me that it's like, oh, that's entertaining.
Yeah,
Look at what they're doing to themselves. I
and
think I'm listening to this and I'm thinking that they're almost speaking to me, saying this is what these women are.
and
And as a young person, I was like, it just felt like, oh yes.
so actually, look, the conversation here is balance because, Chuck D called hip hop the CNN of the ghetto, and there's a lot of logic to that. But at what point does it stop being the CNN and the sideshow of the ghetto? You see what I'm saying? Where people, some of whom aren't actually participating or never participated in any of the things they're talking about, are extolling the virtues of that lifestyle. Now, it's a tricky thing because there needs to be balance. It's like a balanced diet. You know that food pyramid, like you have greens at the bottom, and or your sugar and your sodium is the least bit you consume. If you take it as like there's room for all of it. Like, look, Nas's first album was from the perspective of a kid in the 40 side projects in Queensbridge, looking out of his project window and observing, and to some degree participating in that stuff. The second album had him as an active participant. It went from Nasty to Esco. So the whole of It Was Written was him as an active participant, almost taking on or hyperbolizing some of the stuff that he'd participated in, and he was an active participant. Now that needs to all of that needs to be taken with, like, we take a little bit of Nas, we take a little bit of Mobb Deep, we take a bit of Common, we take some Black Sheep, we take some Onyx, we take some Snoop, we take some Dre, we take some Lady of Rage, we take some Raw Digger, we take some Moni Love, and it's all part of a balanced hip hop diet. The problem is the negative is the most profitable, so that's also got the most money pumped into it, because even though payola is a dirty word, these records are getting serviced by money. How much it costs to get a number one record then and now? It's a lot of money. So a lot of money is going into pumping these things, and I listen to it all. I'll listen to the I love Dre's music, but then I love Nas and I love Common and I love, you know what I mean? Like, you've got to allow balance. And the problem is, at a certain point, people from outside of the culture and our culture became the loudest voices and most powerful voices, and they were able to dictate. And within their own culture, they might not necessarily. It's like this. It's like people who work at Apple. They know what phones do to your brain. So you hear them say like, "Oh, I don't give my kids an iPad," because they know how it's rewiring. So it should be with record labels. Why have you got certain people from outside of the culture basically being able to say, yeah, this is the best record, and this young kid from the south side of Chicago who's talking about stabbing, this is what's hot. But you go to their house and they're playing Barry Manilow.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
But I think one of the things that as I mentioned, if I'm listening to this now, when it came out 20 plus years ago, I didn't think much of it. I was just going with the flow. I think my ears, I'm listening to it now. I'm thinking, goodness, is this what they were saying? This is, and I go through all of this, and I flip and listen to East Coast at the time, and yes, they may be talking about selling drugs and trying to get some money. And then I've got my girl who's we had Method and Mary. It was very much of Bonnie and Clyde. Okay, you're with me with this, and even when I spoke to Dalvin of Jodeci, and he was saying that when they had to, I'll Be Sure wrote the intro to For My Lady, and he says, so you're having my baby, and he says, look, we were just kids. We're 16, 17. We didn't know anything about having babies. But they were pressured into writing that because Al was talking from his own experience, and he thought that would be a great intro. But so there was still a sense of, oh, that's not us. But I think the way MCA got behind
Death Row, the way they got behind Cash Money, because it didn't matter what you were saying to your people as long as you're making us money. And it's, to me, it's just like here in the UK, we've got EastEnders. To me, it's one of the worst thing on
No
that's been.
shots on EastEnders. I will not have any shots on EastEnders. Shout out to our L Street people.
No, and the reason I say that is because it would look at the worst thing in society and put it on TV and say, yeah, and it's almost then people watching it think, oh, this is how society is, and that's why it doesn't try and say, let's just try and show a positive life. It would do this, but that's the equivalent to me of what the popular music that we're pushing that was really destroying. And yes, you were talking about consciousness rap. There's no such thing as it was rap that's been a lot more positive. Heavy D was very positive. He was doing stuff. DMX was always talking about the demons in his head, and I think he has ADHD and stuff. He was always talking about all of that level of struggles that he was going through. And then you started having Murder Inc. Party, let's enjoy life and spend money, and that took it to another step, because all of a sudden everyone wanted to be materialistic, everyone wanted to be whatever.
And actually, look, if you look back, because you talk about you mentioned Jodeci, you mentioned some R&B. It's really interesting because the hip hopification of R&B needs to be studied as well. Like, you talk to older people, like my olders, and they'll say, like, because they didn't have hip hop. Hip hop was like more of a novelty in those days, and it was But it's like, where's the what you say, baby making records? And when you think about those baby making records, Barry White, Never Cursed, Marvin Gaye. I was actually playing Sexual Healing in the car. We were going on a family trip the other day. We were driving somewhere, and like Sexual Healing came on, and that was like. And then one of my uncles said, "What do you know about this song?" I was like, "I grew up with it. We had the record." And anyway, that has the word sex in it, and it's alluding to sex being being medicinal, because it is. It can be. No, they were alluding to that. And that didn't have one curse word in it. And you think about like Berry Gordy and the Motown being the sound of a young America, and they, but Berry Gordy got sort of called out for that as being like a kind of conformist or whatever. But Motown was clean. They didn't even do. You think about Motown. The singers didn't really do runs. They didn't really do their gospel stuff. They did that stuff in Stax and other labels. But if you think about black labels in the early 70s and stuff, and there's some really kind of profane albums that came out, whether it's the Rudy Ray Moore, Dolomite albums and all that. But for the most part, R&B and black music was clean. Now, take that to the 90s with Jodeci, who had their kind of R&B thug aesthetic, and some of like Public Announcement and all of what R. Kelly was doing. And then you bring that up into the early 2000s, where you have, the convergence of hip hop R&B, and that reaches its logical conclusion to now, where you can't tell the difference between a rapper and a singer. You used to be able to. You used to get singers on your record. Like, this is my soft bit.
It started with I'll get you in, like Rakim and Friends, like come in, do a little thing, and then you move on.
Yeah.
And then the balance became, okay, you come and sing.
But if you look at R&B records now, I mean, look, I released a single the other day, and like that has a bit of cursing in it, because that's just kind of like commonplace. It's called Good High. It's on all the platforms.
Okay.
That 20 years ago, 25 years ago, that wouldn't have been like a thing. You wouldn't be cursing on your records. So that's the influence of hip hop. Now, I'm not here to preach or anything like that. We're just talking and observing the thing. And I think the conversation more than anything is balance, because ultimately we, the public, even though we're fed it, we can rebel against it and say we don't want it, but we want some of those things. Now, to speak of those I can't speak to those people's experience, whether it be Too Short up in the what's this Prairie Dog saying R&B wasn't clean, it just wasn't explicit. Yes, that's a good point. Sorry, R&B wasn't necessarily clean. They would talk about sex, they would talk about explicit topics in a clever way, so they would allude to it. because you couldn't swear on the airwaves because of the FCC. You couldn't get away with it, you know. And then, you know, they say in Jamaican culture they call it slackness. That's what they call it, slackness. And there's so much slackness in music. But with what we're talking about is balance, really. We're talking about like how to get music balance, you know, so you can have a bit of this, a bit of that. And ultimately, look, some music is rubbish. Some people don't need access to SM7Bs and cheap microphones and other things. Some people don't need access to it. Not everyone should be able to release a single every week, you know. That's part of it, because there's no filtration system. People talk about gatekeeping. Gatekeeping is important because it means that there's some level of taste and quality control. But who are these gatekeepers? Who empowers them? Yada yada yada. But I think it is balance. All we're talking about is balance here. And you bring up a good point, because the irony is, Namdi, you do psychotherapy for a living, and I trust you're a very good one. And I doubt that you are riding around your part of the world in a 6'4" Impala with automatic weapons on your side, while one of your workers is in the back, ready to hit the host role. I doubt that very much. We as two grown-up men can appreciate the sonics and take it for what it is. And I did frame my experience as a 12-year-old of this album and those albums around the same time that I first seen Delirious and listened to Richard Pryor's records, because being into Eddie made me go back to Richard and being like, oh, this is pulpy, this is naughty, this is like something that, you put headphones on and you kind of do that. I wouldn't play this in front of my mum, but I'm not supposed to either. You see what I'm saying? Like, I play J5 in front of my mum, I play Marvin, I play Stevie. But I do think there is a conversation about bringing, and I think our like the chat has brought up some really great points, is about bringing some of that balance. So look, there's some great R&B artists. There's some great R&B artists. There's some great rappers who don't necessarily curse. Like, there's La Russell, who I think is incredible. There's a Henny Savant who popped up in the chat. A Henny Savant is literally a savant. He makes his own music. He raps. He's brilliant. But you've got La Russell, who is a very positive kind of. Not positive. I make that sound like he's corny. He's really positive in terms of his outlook on life and what he talks about. He's incredible. So it's about giving balance. And you also have Kendrick. You also have Drake. I'm not going to sit here and just do that whole dog pile on Drake thing. You've got artists. There's enough variety, and there should be enough variety, but it's just who has a light shone on them and who we care to dig for.
Yeah, I mean, as I said, it's definitely been fascinating to be able to go through this album, to be able to talk through it, and definitely we will have to pick up a different album. And
man, don't ask me to come on here again, man.
No, we're definitely gonna come back and
like, get this guy off. Prairie Dog's gonna be like, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about.
No, we'll definitely find a different album, and then be able to take the discussion from the album, but to the culture. There's just so much.
Sure.
I mean, for me, the biggest kick in the teeth was in the mid-90s. The labels. Donnell said this when I spoke with him for the first time, was that there was a conscientious effort by the labels to destroy the Black community.
I mean,
because they decided to cut all the R&B, and you had most of the R&B artists singing about love. He said, from Maxwell to himself, to Joe, to Brian McKnight, R. Kelly, they were all singing about love in a different way.
And they decided to... if it's Black people singing about it, it's Black love.
Yes. But the labels decided, you know what? How do we poison this community? The best way is to invest more in the people who are destroying Black love. Because you know, whether it's the breakdown of absent fathers, it became almost glamorized. Yeah, I've got a kid here. I've got a bit. It
I used
was.
to get laughed at. I said to someone today, I used to get laughed at by some people in school. Be like, "What? Your parents are together?" It was
And
like,
yeah, because that's the message that was portrayed.
yeah,
But if you think about, Al Green, "Let's Stay Together," we all these songs about
yeah,
black love. You see videos of them in black families in the '60s during the civil rights stuff, wearing suits, the dads and the mums coming home with the kids. I mean,
yeah.
so all of a sudden that breaks, and music is reflecting that. And
100.
if I interview an artist and they talk about, they all say, "Yeah, my dad left and raised by mom," it's every
Yeah,
single one. The
yeah.
music reflects that as well.
The music reflects it. There's Tank also said something really similar. He said something about black radio, about pop radio, and he was talking about, it was on the Breakfast Club, and he was talking about how Sam Smith gets to sing "Stay With Me,"
Yeah.
which is a gospel record,
Mm.
and he gets praised for it, but a black artist can't come and go #1 doing the same thing, which infuriates me. Shout out to Sam Smith, he's talented, but like, I'm not impressed by, because you can do that. I went to school with a guy called Ricardo Williams. He's like a few years older than me. Ricardo Williams is one of the best voices I've ever heard in my life. At 14, because we were in the gospel choir together, but the gospel choir was his. I used to just watch this guy, and he's one of the most talented 14, 15-year-olds I've ever met in my life. I mean, and I'm saying that as like a grown man, and I still talk to Ricardo. I'm in awe of him. Vocally untouched, yada, yada, yada. If he was a different shade, or if he was Sam Smith, he would have quintuple platinum. But you're not allowed to just come and sing what is native to you. Other people are allowed to come, dip, participate. We give out barbecue invites. Invite, come do your thing. And actually, I wouldn't be surprised. While I'm not a conspiracy theorist, I do think there is some kind of concerted effort to kind of undo a lot of the foundation in the culture and the community. I mean, I feel that way about podcast mics. You know what I mean? Like they talk about Iran-Contra. I feel like this van mysteriously came into black neighborhoods and just dropped podcast microphones, SM7Bs everywhere, like they did with crack in the 80s. That's
Yeah. Well, I think just as a rapper, one of the things I will say is that I woke up this morning and thought, why did they break the nose of the Sphinx in Egypt to hide the fact that the Egyptians were black?
Because it was a
Pharaoh
Joe
was black.
Jackson nose. It was a Joe Jackson size nose. Jackson size nose.
And the fact that a group of people would look and say, you know what, this would tell too much of the truth about this people. They just decide to break the nose. It just shows you that actually, if people talk about conspiracies around labels and the kinds of things they push out, whether it's music, whether it's even the movies. I mean, people are complaining that, all the black movies that we had in the '90s, whether it's a Love Jones of
Love Jones, man.
yeah, the Best Man, The Woods, all these. We were just getting movies, both comedies, both romantic, and all that, and whether it's poetic justice. It was almost like the movies and the soundtracks, and they just decided, you know what, these things were making money, they were entertaining a community, but they were telling too much positivity. So we're going to stop that.
Well, I'll tell you what, I'm going to make a film. I'm going to make a black British rom-com. That's going to be one of my next things. I'm just going to put it here now. I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it and try and tell our story. And I know a couple other people are doing that and pushing that wave. So let's just do more of it. Talk is good, but it's about like putting money where mouth is. So that's going to be my thing. And I'll do a soundtrack.
Well, if you need any of the legacy R&B acts to come and feature in there,
come on.
I'll call Donnell and 702. Tell them to.
Or if I need song clearances, everyone go listen to Good High, man. That's my single that I put out with.
Where can they get it? And
that's on all the DSPs. I've got a couple other songs. I'll just keep putting singles out, man. Stuff I produce myself and sing on. So just putting it out.
Any visuals? Would there be any visuals with any of them?
On my Instagram, there's a kind of lyric video, but in time I'm gonna do like a visualizer. I'm gonna do something interesting. I'm gonna hopefully put together something interesting down the line using my visual skills and do something. I'll wrap it up in a nice thing. But at the moment, we're just dropping these singles, man. So just stay tuned and follow me on Instagram at Akemnji, Akemnji. And I want to ask you, Namdi, I need this Malibu Dre song. Tim, please talk to Tim. And look, I'm not going to share it with the internet. I just want to hear this Malibu Dre song, please. I beg. Tell him this is like a super fan, and I just want to hear this Malibu Dre record.
let me. Hey Tim, let me just send a Tim.
Yeah, we're talking because I want this Malibu Dre record, man. Like so bad.
Is there a track called? You said
Malibu Dre, like Malibu Barbie, but Malibu Dre.
Dre, that you produced. Let me see what he says here. Let's see what he says here. There was a time that Tim will come on and we'll do this live stuff. Barry Anderson says, just as we're wrapping up, he says, here in Memphis, we used to have a weekend that everyone came out, the Stone Cold Picnic Memphis, owned where there was Al Green, Isaac Hayes, and the Barkay Black families were everywhere. As I said, it's music, films, entertainment is a powerful tool to promote. So when the Cosby Show was on, it gave a sense of having a father as a surgeon, a mother as a lawyer, and even though the balances, we had other shows that were there, whether it is Good Times, The Jeffersons, and all these things. And when you stop showing, even Family Matters, but when you take away the visuals of hardworking families, parents, mums and dads and kids, and you take that away, and you put on stuff like not Power. What was the one with the label that had that Taraji? Empire, and it becomes the destruction of a family and stuff like that.
But part of it as well, just because I don't want to get too deep into it, part of it is on who gets to tell the story or commission the story. This is same as the record labels. If you just on a TV level, and I say this all the time, if an exec or a commissioner doesn't know anyone that looks like me or you, and if they were to invite, I always say, if they were to invite 6 people around their house and not one of them look like me or you, and the only place that they interacted with people that look like us, men or women, was in Tesco's, in Morrison's, or on the street, that's their perception. So they will say stupid shit because it's been said. They'll say stupid stuff like, "Oh, I don't know any black doctors. I don't know any black lawyers. I don't know any." Half of my family work for the UN. Half my sister's a dentist. My sister's a lawyer. Like my cousins work in like JP Morgan and all this type of stuff. Like, how are you gonna tell black people that like what the limitations of their thing? So part of that is a huge factor, is who has the checkbook. Who has a checkbook. But yeah, look, Cosby Show, like obviously you have to caveat it with like, obviously, you know, some terrible things have happened over the years, and Mr. Cosby's legacy has been tarnished. But Cosby Show,
different world.
You couldn't tell me I wasn't going to Hillman.
Yeah, I went to a historical black college when I in Selma. It was a black college.
Yeah,
and that was the model. I looked at that, and we were learning about stuff. People I know who went to Howard, and
the real HU. And actually, look, it's really tricky when there's no balance, because it goes back to that thing about balance. Is like, where is the balance? Because we do need dramas, and we do need things kind of, whether it's showing the ills and the dark sides of stuff, but you also need things that represent, like, look, I'm big on showing the black middle class because it exists and it's strident, and I grew up with people who were on both sides of the fence, or both sides of the tracks rather, people who lived that life, and people also who had like a picket fence and were black, and their mum and dad worked. Mum's a judge, dad's a banker or whatever, and they were doing all right. And we need to start making that the orthodoxy of blackdom, or a larger voice in it. You see what I'm saying? Like, we need to make that a larger voice in it, because not all of us have, like, as bad as these stories are, not all of us are from that. You know, and we all come from a place as a black diaspora, African Americans, black African Caribbeans. We're all from a place of being the oppressed and the downtrodden. That's part of our intravenous, the pain that we suffered for like millennia.
Yeah.
But where we are now in different places, there's a spectrum of experiences. And like I said, with the music, it's balance, because I want to hear the story of, I want to see the new My Wife and Kids. My Wife and Kids with Damon Wayans was a brilliant early 2000s antidote to the Fresh Prince. Damon Wayans, Tisha Campbell, Georgia O'Gore, Jennifer Freeman. Like, it was funny, it was silly, it was goofy, but it also had like a mum and a dad together. The dad had a truck, the mum was a businesswoman. You had the kids just going through regular kid stuff, and it wasn't like any hood stories in it. It was just like a tale of like a black family doing goofy stuff, and it was so positive. You had Moesha as well. I mean, up until that last series where Ray J came in and ruined everything. Ray J is the great ruiner of sitcoms. Ray J is the great ruiner of sitcoms. As soon as Ray J steps up in a sitcom, it's about to get on the chart. But, Moesha, the Mitchell family, like a positive family, who were living hood adjacent. They were in Crenshaw. Hakeem was next door. You know, you could tell, you never saw his mum, and Big Mama, his grandma, who he'd always talk about. He was always coming over for a plate. They never embarrassed Hakeem and said, like, "Oh, you're poor." But we knew that, like, oh, this kid's always coming over because there's probably no electricity in his house. And you had Frank Mitchell with his awful, no shots at Ray J. We love Ray J, but yeah, you're right, he's TV poison. But no, we had Frank Mitchell with his terrible box high top haircut. But he was a responsible father, again, until they ruined it in the final series when they made him a cheater. Anyway.
They're asking for your IG. Let me put it up. It's just your surname, right?
No, it's just my first name.
Your first name, sorry.
There's only one of me. There's only one who talks this much nonsense.
Yeah, hold on. I'm just going to put it up here. Where is the @ sign? So yeah, that's
no. There's an N. There's an N. Oh, you did me like the white people.
And I'm looking
AKEMNJI.
I'm looking straight at it here. Okay. Well, I can blame the fact that I'm dyslexic, so that
my bad.
that always helps to.
That made me feel funny.
That always helps to be able to showcase that. Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah. So hold on. What have I just done here? Nope. I deleted the wrong one here.
I can see it's coming up as my real government name.
Yeah. No. I mean, what I was trying to do was hold on 1 second. Yeah. I know people were asking about it. Yeah. And also he is he's that's not even showing here. That you've also got a new show that is that people can check it twice. Okay, hold on.
Yeah, Rock was very good. That was a good show. Shout out to Michael Brown. Yeah, Rock was a good show with Charles Dutton. Yeah, good show.
Yeah, but you've also got the Black Ops Series 1 on Hulu in
Black
the
Ops
States.
1 is on Hulu in the States, and Black Ops Series 2 should be coming to Hulu hopefully soon, but it's out in the UK. I'm not going to hate on you if you use a VPN to watch it. I don't watch it. I'm also in The Ballad of Wallace Island, which is hopefully going to be Oscar nominated. We'll see.
Okay.
But that was with Kerry Mulligan. I play play an American. Play Kerry Mulligan's husband in that, and yeah, we've got more stuff coming out, and yeah, like watch, support. Black Ops is really funny, man. It's really good.
Yes, it definitely is. But also for those who, I think a lot of people would have seen the um, Drillagram, Who's the Birthday Girl.
Yes, go
So
do me a favor. Do me a favor. Everyone, go play Drillagram on Instagram. That is like on YouTube or DSP's Drillagram. Who's the Birthday Girl? I wrote that song. So I wrote that song. So play it. In fact, if I know you and you don't play Drillagram as for a happy birthday, we've got no, go play that, man. It's a funny tune, but it's a good birthday song. It should be like you should be playing that with like it's up there with Stevie Wonder, Happy Birthday. You know, it's up there.
Yeah, and the show was and to make sure I got the spelling right, Famala.
Yes. My mum mispronounces it. My mum's like, oh, I watched Famala. No, it's Famala. Yeah.
Yeah, so that was the show that he created, and was it co-created? What would you say? Created?
Co-created, man. I give
Co-created.
I give the love, but because we're here, we're putting ourselves first. I created.
Yeah.
Created. We'll do that.
Yeah, and so it's a 3-series skit. So I had Who's the Birthday Girl, Drillagram. It also had with the Beyonce skit, which
it had the Beyonce skit. Yeah,
yeah.
The girl
I don't like Beyonce, and actually, I would say that my halftime chat community are very much into that because. Since she left Destiny's Child and moved from Dangerous in Love, most people, the generation that watch the channel, are not as much big fans.
Interesting.
Yeah, so since after she did I Am Sasha Fierce,
after Sasha Fierce, okay.
Yeah, there's been a sort of a dip in support within a generation of fans.
I don't want the Beehive to come out for me. So
No. But then also the I love when Bemis did the. Are you finished with that?
Oh, Fat Sam. She actually gets a lot of that when Bemi's out and about. Even though she was heavily made up as like a little 14-year-old boy, she gets a lot of people going, "Oh, are you finished with that? Are you finished?
Yeah, you finished with that. Yeah, I said that. Do you think the clips? What did he say?
Loved it. I loved the album. I saw them in concert. I went to Brixton Academy. Me and a bunch of my school friends, we went and saw that, and it was great for me because they played stuff from the third album. They played stuff from Till the Casket Dropped. So they played Popeyes, the song with Cameron, and I was going crazy. They played a lot of the second album, Hell Hath No Fury, which I think is my favorite Clips album. I think it's just like it's some of the best coke rap that has ever existed, and sonically some of Pharrell's best work. But Let God Sort 'Em Out was it's up there as album of the year. I don't love all the TikToks and people who are suddenly Clips fans breaking it down. It annoys me as much as the GNX essays, but that's just my snobbery. And it's just a thing. I need to let it go. And I get it. People are making content, but like,
I mean, half of this stuff is about, back in the day, it was, you listen to it, it gets its airplay, people generally appreciate it. Now, because we don't have a lot, it's about the hype. If you're doing a TikTok breakdown albums, the clips are almost like, oh, they're the in thing now, so they're the next
everyone jumps
Kendrick, so we need to bring them on. But it's like,
I'll tell you what becomes annoying about it is that there are people from in every generation, you'll have people who are real, like they're the real heads. Like I consider myself one of the real heads, but I've got like my senseis who I will look to, who I'll be like, oh, like this person's a real. Yes, I hate casual listeners and bandwagon. Sorry, and what it is
you
have more people in this era who just jump on. But I'm like, I know you don't listen to the Clips. I know you don't. And look, that sounds so snobby, and I'm never going to change that part of me because that sounds so elitist and so snobby. But I'll literally be like, all right, name me members of the Re-Up Gang. Name me all the members of the Re-Up Gang, which is one of the Clips side projects, and they can't do it. And that's the kind of annoying, obnoxious music fan I have. Do you know why? Because it cost me something to be a fan. There was a point, and it's in every generation. Like, what did it cost you to be a fan? And that's why I take it. That's why I can say with my chest that like I'm an authority on Dr. Dre's 2001 because it cost me something. I remember the money I saved up to go get it. I remember the hours I spent studying that album. Now, Wikipedia could just be an instant expert. I'm like a bunch of my friends. We went to the DJ Premier and Alchemist tour. They had a thing in Kentish Town. And that was, there you go. See, shout out to RD the Prairie Dog. You know Ball. And we went to the Primo thing and Alchemist thing, and it was just surrounded. It was the right level of geekery. It was like, oh, you guys are fans of Gangstar Foundation. You can, or you're fans of Alchemist, and you can name obscure Mobb Deep records. You could talk about Alchemist when he was in the group Illegal, like, and I'm not saying everyone needs to be a nerd like that, but there should be a differentiation between like levels of fan. You shouldn't, not everyone, basically, sorry, this sounds like such a moan, but in this era, everyone is treated equal as like, this era doesn't like experts. It doesn't like experts, and it loves instant experts, but it doesn't like actual experts. And actually, I'm saying, if you're a nerd and you nerd out, you should be lifted to the front. The views and all the accolades, and that's just all I want to. I'm gonna shut up now.
Okay, guys, we appreciate you guys staying with us throughout this throughout what we're doing today. Akemnji and I will be back shortly. We'll
no promise. After this, I might just be like, guys, I've talked too much. I don't know how he's a psychotherapist. That's how he gets me to speak.
With a different album on a different topic and stuff like that. But yeah, hopefully you enjoyed his deep dive into Chronic 2001 and my balanced take about how lyrically it was hard to listen to today. As it probably was 20 plus years ago, but it doesn't take away the genius of Dr. Dre. And another episode, we may talk about what's the difference between Dre and Quick. There's so much to talk about.
Oh, that's a good one. That is a really good one. That's like 1A and 1B. Blake versus Andre Romel Young. That's like, oh, that's a good one.
Yeah.
We'll do that one. That one.
So we'll appreciate you guys and talk to you later. So I would ask you to hold on, and I'm just going to play the outro, and I will talk.
Cool.
Hey guys, thanks for watching. Thanks for being a part of Halftime Chat. Please remember to subscribe, share, and comment. But most importantly, why don't you become a member of Halftime Chat? We've got amazing videos, amazing perks, and being able to support the channel. But anyway, thanks for watching. Take care.
I never participated in that kind.
And somewhere in between
us for even loving us, on which I did miss you with.
What was it like growing up?
She's still making an impact on 4 houses down.
I have a couple pieces.
trying to get this one and that one.
That works for you, but just for me,
No, okay, you're okay.
They don't understand what Jodeci Boys winning all spirits.